Hey, we get it rolling tonight, and we're going to talk a little Niner football on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the dual channel extravaganza, because it's not just the Krug Show. It's Jesse Naylor and his channel as well. Jesse, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a little bit roomier here on the stage when Vish isn't here. We miss him. We'll be back on your channel next week with the trio, and then we'll get back to rotating through the channels.
That's the first topic tonight. I'm not missing Vish, and I feel like let's explore that a little bit more. It seems like there's more time for you and I to talk, and he dominates sometimes, and I resent it. And I've wanted to do a stream all about it, and no, we miss Vish. Vish is in a vacation. He's in a vacation mood lately,
Yes.
man. He's roaming the earth.
I told him he's ducking your channel because this is now the second time he's missed on dates that were supposed to go on your channel. He happened to have a vacation scheduled.
Yeah, he's feuding with the channel.
Right.
Drive up views. Everybody hit like and subscribe over at Jesse's place over here as well, and give us both love here as we talk a little Niner football. I think it's going to be, I mean, you never know. We could go an hour, we could go 90, we could go 2. We've gone 3. I'm not sure what we're dialed up for tonight, but I do have money on the Jaguars, so my mood could change if you see the Saints, rolling back. But I want to talk some Niners, and Jesse, this is the first time you and I have talked since the last game, since the Browns beat the Niners and knocked them from the list of unbeaten teams. The thing that is undeniable is that Brock Purdy was one of his worst games. Give me your takeaway. Everybody's had one this week. Some people, and you'd think it would be a universal thought, but you know what? No, everybody sees it a little differently. Give me your takeaway on Brock's struggles in Cleveland last Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of things that went into it. I remember tweeting in the first half that the only 2 times that I've seen Brock Purdy look human, it seems like, was the Seattle Seahawks playoff game, the first quarter, and the first half of this game. And again, I tweeted this out at halftime, but the point is that it was both of them were in rain. That was the commonality. And I remember thinking after the first quarter in Seattle, everybody said, "Oh, it's jitters, he'll get over it." I don't think it was jitters. I thought in the moment, and I definitely think that it really was to do with the rain. Like, he now twice has struggled a little bit in rain. So then in the second half, no CMC, you already didn't have Debo, and it got worse until it didn't, And so for me, listen, we knew that this game was coming at some point, Larry. Like, everybody has bad games. Every player has bad games. Brock had bad drives. He had a bad quarter every once in a while, but he'd always had good games overall. This was the first time he didn't. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think I saw things a little bit different, though, from other people. I will say this. I feel like the narrative coming out of this was like, well, we should be encouraged because of the game-winning drive. It wasn't his fault that Moody missed. He put him in position. I wasn't encouraged by that drive at all. I didn't think it was a very good drive. I thought there was some missed throws there. There was a near pick. The reason you should be encouraged has nothing to do with that drive. The reason you should be encouraged is because it's the first time he's looked bad. Like, he's played like 15 games or almost a whole season or whatever it is at this point, and he's looked bad in one game. That's why you should be encouraged. Who cares that it was a bad game? But, whatever. To each their own, I guess.
I'll give you my takeaway on this one. It clearly was a bad game. I think we're looking at a historically great Browns defense. I really do. I think they're really good.
Yeah, right now they are anyways.
If you look at the way they played individually, Grant Delpit, who was a good player at LSU, I always look at the personnel side of things, and they just have accumulated a lot of good football players. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was fantastic. He was getting his hand on the ball that Van Der Esch was going over Van Der Esch's head. I mean, he's super fast as a blitzer. He's just really, really good. He had 3 tackles for loss. Thornhill, very good football player. Newsome, very good football player. Myles Garrett, one of the best players in the league and maybe future Hall of Famer. And then Dalvin Tomlinson had a really good game. When you watch the film back, he was really strong at the point. So they got Denzel Ward. I mean, they got guys. This is a really good defense. And I think by the end of the year, when people look at this, they're going to say, you know what? The Browns have had some problems offensively. They lost Chubb, and Watson's been questionable. But defensively, they're awesome. I think this is a really good defense.
It is a very good defense. We'll see if they can keep up the historic pace thing. You know what's interesting about the Browns though, and they did get a turnover in this game, but they is for as good of a defense they are, they don't force a ton of turnovers, which is kind of interesting. I mean, whenever you play sticky man coverage the way that they do and you can get home with 4, you would think that you would force more turnovers. Now, I don't know if a lot of their games have looked like it did this last week where they had multiple chances and just haven't capitalized, but they don't force a ton of turnovers for a defense that's as good as they are and on this historical pace like they are.
Also, I think the other takeaway has to be that, man, it really looked like water on the ball bothers Brock Purdy. I mean, the ball that slipped out of his hand, the ball that he threw to Kittle on the sideline, which was supposed to be over Kittle's right shoulder, and instead he kind of fluttered towards out of bounds over his left shoulder. That was, I thought, the worst ball that he threw as far as just the actual ball itself. Not talking about coverage, but I thought overall he did keep his poise. The one pick was clearly behind Ayuk, and his receivers let him down, I think, in this one as well. It wasn't Ayuk's highlight reel day. He had 3 drops, all of them hit him in the hands. Debo dropped one early that hit him in the hands. So, it wasn't a great performance, though, by Purdy, and we'll see how he bounces back. Now, some people have suggested that if you just play man coverage against Brock Purdy, that's like some secret. Greg Cosell was on the radio kind of laughing at the whole notion that just playing man coverage would basically make Brock Purdy, render him obsolete, like some people have made it sound. But I'm eager to see what the Vikings game plan is, because when you blitz, you give defined reads. When you give a quarterback that processes fast, defined reads, he can crush you if he's in sync with his weapons. So, the Vikings, I think the way they defend the Niners is going to tell you a lot about how the league sees the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't the whole man coverage thing. Okay, I will say this. First of all, let's look at league averages. League averages on yards per play when man coverage is played versus zone goes down almost a full yard. Like, that's across the league. That's not a Brock Purdy thing or a 49er thing. That's across the league. The problem is that man coverage is only played about 23% of the time. And the reason it is because not all teams can execute man coverage. In order to execute man coverage, you have to have corners that are sticky, and you have to have 3 corners that can play that way. Very few teams have that. And that should be another reason that you're encouraged by Brock Purdy is, okay, let's say that man coverage is some sort of kryptonite for him, which I doubt that that's the case, but let's say that it is. Not many teams, if any, can execute and do what the Cleveland Browns do. So unless they play Cleveland in the Super Bowl again, you should be pretty okay. I think the closest team, oddly enough, is in their own division. That's the Seattle Seahawks, but Seattle doesn't have the pass rushers to do what they did by rushing 4. So at this point, unless they make a trade at the deadline and go get a Danielle Hunter or something like that, Seattle has the secondary to do it. I don't think that they have the pass rushers to do exactly that to the 49ers.
I just think Purdy had a off day on a wet day in Cleveland against a really, really good defense. And we'll see how he plays primetime against the Vikings. This is
he's going to crush it. They're going to score 30 points, and he's going to bounce back in a big way. That's what's going to happen.
It's a huge game for the Niners because they got the Bengals waiting in the next game off a short week with a major rest advantage. The Niners are really being challenged as they try to get into their bye over the next couple of weeks. Okay, let's get to running the ball, because one of the questions I asked Kyle Shanahan today was, is Christian McCaffrey's touch path projections, is it a sustainable plan? He's on pace for 400 touches, far and away the most on this team. Probably will be the most in the league. And what's he going to be in the playoffs? And maybe just see what he said. And he said, he's our starting running back and we throw him the ball. So it's like, I know why he's got a lot of touches, but do you think it's a sustainable plan? And it's that he kind of dodged a little bit. What do you think, Jesse? If I asked you that question, running CMC and keeping him on this pace, is that the best plan for the Niners in their run to win the Super Bowl?
No, I don't believe that it is, because CMC has had 2 other seasons where he's produced like this amount of touches that he's on pace for now. After those 2 seasons, he fell apart for 2 seasons. And that was a much younger CMC. CMC is what, 27, I believe. That's when running backs start to that's like the peak, and then they start to go downhill. If you give him 400 touches at this age, I don't know that you are doing the best thing for this team this year at the end of the season, but B, you've got him bare minimum through next year before you have any outs on that contract. I don't know that he can be efficient next year if you give him this kind of workload. Like, that's not going to be easy to do at the age of 28. So no, I don't think it's the right thing. The problem is this, Larry, and one of the conversations that keeps coming up is Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. And I think most people agree that Jordan Mason is probably the better runner at this point. He's the more physical runner. He looks a lot like Marshawn Lynch. We all understand that. And I agree with that point. But one thing that Mason does not have down is his assignments when he's not running the ball. There's a couple things that I noticed. One, and I don't know if you remember this in training camp, but I remember making note of it and talking about it. He often is not on the same page with the quarterback when it comes to his routes. When he has choice routes, they're almost never on the same page. And that's bled into games here a couple times as well. Then he misses some blocking assignments. When everybody was mad that Kyle Shanahan threw 3 straight times in this game, when they were trying to run out the clock with like 4 minutes left or what have you, the reason that Brock got so much pressure so quickly and then ended up taking the intentional grounding was because Mason missed a blocking assignment. So if you can't trust Mason to do some of these other things, how can you play him as much as we would all want him to play? And then you've got Mitchell, who's always injured. So it's like, what's the alternative? You going to run Debo? Oh, wait, Debo's hurt all the time now too. So I just don't know what the other options are. I mean, on the surface, it's like, well, yeah, just give somebody else carries. Well, okay, but there are other things that come with playing running back that aren't just running the ball, and nobody seems to be able to either stay healthy or do those things effectively other than CMC. What do you do?
What do you want the running back split to be on Monday night? If you could pick your ideal running back split, I want to see Mason get at least a dozen carries. That's where I'm at, which would be about double, I think, what he's ever gotten. The last 2 weeks, he's gone for 5.4 and 6.9.
Yeah.
I mean, per carry on 15 carries and 2 touchdowns. And one of them was a 26-yard run. So that's all I'm saying. Feature the guy a little bit. 10 plays was good. He scored. What would he look like if he gave him 5 more plays, 10 more plays? That's all I'm saying. I think Mason's got to have a bigger role. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he's powerful. He can run through arm tackles, and he's kind of fast. I mean, I'm telling you, watching this guy, it's like he's got a gear that you wouldn't think a back that size to have. So, I mean, he's 225, but he can really get it rolling if you can get him 2 steps of momentum. I know they're probably concerned about the turnover potential fumbling wise. He did fumble a couple times in camp, but I think the upside's too great. Jesse, if it was up to me, it's funny. Kyle was asked about Mason this week, and he answered by saying that he liked Mitchell. So I think we know where Kyle stands. He really likes Mitchell, and I would expect Mitchell to get a lot of carries if CMC can't go. But what does Jordan Mason need to do to get on the field?
I think it's exactly what I just talked about. I think he likes Mitchell because of all the other things that come with playing the position. And that's really what it comes down to. Mason is clearly right now the better runner. Mason between the tackles might be the best runner on the team, and that's CMC included. Now, CMC is so damn versatile. He's a great pass catcher. He's great on outside zone, and he can run between the tackles as well. But Mason is just a different physicality. Let's also not forget that Mason's actually he's got good hands. I mean, we saw it in training camp. You've seen it bleed over a couple times in the game. He's got good hands. It's just, is he going to run the right route when he gets a choice? Is he going to be able to block and protect Brock Purdy? I mean, these things are also very important. You know, if it was up to me, I would say CMC just doesn't play. I think Minnesota is dead in the water, regardless of whether CMC plays or not. Give him a week. Get him ready for a Bengals team who will be coming off of a bye and is ascending right now. Joe Burrow's finally getting back into form. That's what I want to see is have him ready for that. Then they've got the bye week after that, gives them another week to rest. I think they can come out of that with him looking pretty good. But I wouldn't play CMC at all, and I would figure it out between Mitchell and Mason. And yes, if it's just carrying the ball, I would love to see Mason get a ton of touches. I think he can do a lot with it. I just don't know if Kyle trusts him to do those other things.
Let's get into all these supers. People are raining on you, Jesse. If Debo is out, do you think we see more Ronnie Bell or Ray McLeod? Seems we saw more McLeod in Cleveland. I would like to see Bell get more chances. He's come up big. I will say this from being at practice today, Ronnie Bell is not just a good receiver or a very good receiver. Ronnie Bell is a potentially great receiver. And what I mean by that is his footwork on the sideline is maybe the best on the entire team. And he does it every day. Every day he works the sideline to, make that catch, get his both feet in. I mean, the guy really works at the mechanics of bringing in the ball and getting both feet in. And he makes he challenges himself during practice reps to just cut it razor thin at the sideline. And the guy, I mean, I don't know that he's missed. So he's operating at a really high level. When he gets an opportunity to get some reps, you're going to see him produce. He's going to produce catches and touchdowns because his route running, hands, body control along the sideline, awesome. I mean, it's amazing. When people see what this guy does when he gets some run, it's going to be fun to watch. But he's got to get some run, and they got to put him on the field.
Yeah, it may be tough to do that this year, but it's clear. I mean, he's definitely surpassed anything that Danny Gray is going to be on this team, most likely. And if it wasn't obvious before, I think it's pretty obvious now that Jennings will not be back with this team. Bell will have a much bigger role next year, much bigger role.
Though once again, when if you go back and look at that Cleveland game and you say, well, who did step up? I thought Jawan Jennings had a real nice game. I think he's a guy who did a few things for them. All right, what do you think though, as far as Ty Davis Price, Juszczyk, and there's a lot of people speculating the Niners may need to add a back, and I've heard people suggest running back is a need at the deadline. Where are you with the backs going into the rest of the year?
I mean, I think I'm fine with the backs. I have no idea what TDP is. I do know that he had a good little training camp, but outside of that, I don't know. I mean, he's like a ghost. Does he even exist? Is he even on this roster? I mean, he doesn't dress. He hasn't played worth a lick, hardly any this whole season. Like, I don't know what he is. I mean, is this just another third round running back draft pick that is going to the wasteland? I'm not sure. I don't think they need to go get another one. I mean, all of them are relatively healthy. CMC may miss a week or two, but it's not a long-term injury. You have 4 on the roster. Like, I don't think they need to get another one.
All day, every day, Kim says not having CMC and throwing a sprinkled ball is Brock's kryptonite. There you go. Sprinkled.
Maybe.
I like the way she painted that picture. Matt McCune, the overreaction on both sides of the Purdy debate is getting old. I don't know. What's more annoying? The Purdy lovers, the Purdy haters, the Purdy, people that are pro, con. Tinker says, man, Carolina used CMC more than I think we do. The difference is that's all Carolina had, but we got key players everywhere. But to your question, I want to see hard-hitting thumpers all night long. I like that one from Tinker.
Yeah, it's a good comment, Tinker. Appreciate you.
Is Tinker a regular on the Jesse extravaganza?
Yeah, Tinker's great.
Knees says all this for it to be TDP's breakout game.
That's actually a possibility. Okay, actually, hold on real quick. Going back to the Mitchell Mason thing and missed assignments and why he's going with Mitchell. Larry, let's not forget that Raheem Mostert had a historical NFC Championship game and was on a torrid pace up until that point. And do you remember who started in the Super Bowl?
Was it Mitchell?
It was Tevin Coleman.
I mean,
Tevin Coleman started over Mostert.
Mitchell wasn't even there.
Yeah, Mitchell wasn't there yet. Tevin Coleman was the starter over.
Well, Kyle loved Tevin Coleman. And I'll say this: I've met Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman is maybe the toughest guy in the room. So it's like I almost can't ever blame anybody ever for going with Tevin Coleman because in some ways that guy's, seriously, in a room full of tough guys, this guy stood out as the toughest guy.
He's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, he is tough. That was a tough guy. And Kyle loved him, absolutely loved him and featured him and they might bring him back. I would. Are you convinced you won't see Tevin Coleman back? I'm not. I could see him bring him.
God, I don't know. What is he, like 30 something now? I don't
It can
think
happen. Matt McCune says Mitchell will get hurt during the coin toss. I mean, this is the deal with Mitchell. He's a phenomenal runner between the tackles, but I mean, I've said it a bunch of times. He's a small guy. He's got a big man's game and he's got a small man's body, and it's a bad combo. He just keeps getting beaten up. But his pick and slide, his ability to run through holes, his instincts, his speed to the edge, his balance, he's really good. And he finishes his runs and he never fumbles and he carries, there's a trust there that Shanahan has in him. But Mason is just a bigger, stronger, more explosive guy. And if you can get Mason rolling in space 2-3 steps and get him the ball, you've got a really dangerous weapon, and I think they got to use him. Maybe in the pass game. Maybe they'll use him in the pass game. What do the Niners need most at the deadline, Jesse? What do you think?
I mean, well, what they need most, they're not going to get, which is a right tackle. You're just not going to get one.
You're not like in McKivitz.
No.
He graded. DeMarcus Lawrence didn't do anything against him, and I think he only gave up one pressure in the Browns game. You just think he's not good enough, needs to be upgraded.
I mean, okay. Let's say he's playing decent, like better than what we maybe expected going into the season. Let's say that that's the case, which I don't necessarily think that is the case, but let's say that is the case.
Yeah.
He's still the weak link on this offense. Like if you go through the offensive players all the way through and you get down to McKivitz, it's like McKivitz or Burford, which one? And Burford is much younger, still has a ton of career ahead of him. McKivitz would be like the weak link, unfortunately. Now, when you get to the defensive side and you compare McKivitz as a player at his position compared to everybody on defense, he would be the weak link there probably too. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that McKivitz would be the one, but likely you're not going to get that at the trade deadline. Maybe, but most likely you're not. They already addressed pass rusher, although if a guy like Danielle Hunter's out there or Chase Young, I mean, you might want to kick the tires on those guys as well. They're a level above of what they got in Gregory, but I think ultimately corner's where it's at. And it's not even like, yes, it would be nice to have Demo kick inside or maybe just bring somebody in that's a natural nickel themselves that can kick inside and keep Demo outside. He's been playing great football out there, but it's just the depth overall. And there's some players that I like on this team, like Womack, Luter, we'll see what he ends up being. But if those starters go down, can you really rely on one of those other players? I don't know. I don't know yet. I mean, I think long-term, maybe, but right now you're trying to win a Super Bowl. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. You think about it. If you look at their secondary on paper and you look at the first three guys and you're like, okay, first three guys are pretty good. But then when you get to the guys behind those guys, so you got Mooney Ward, you got Demo Lenore, Isaiah Oliver. Oliver, by the way, limited in practice, just running up and down today. He was running fast, but he was just running. And then after that's your starting three, okay? And all of a sudden, if one guy goes down, these are the rest of your guys. Ambry Thomas, you don't know what you're getting from Womack. He's on the IR. He's set to return at some point. Darrell Luter's on the PUP list. He hasn't played at all. He's a major talent. I'll tell you that. I mean, I've seen him practice. He's a major talent. Long arms, really suffocating, very athletic. He's also who knows what he's going to be, right? He's a rookie, and he played at South Alabama for the Jaguars. So we don't know. We don't know what he's going to do. They have Kendall Sheffield, who runs exceptionally fast, a former Buckeye, and they've got Shamar Jean Charles. And that's their cornerback group. So, I mean, they're leaning on, a full-time role for, Ambry Thomas or Anthony Brown if they have any injuries. I just think corner is clearly the number one need. Sean Murphy Bunting would make a lot of sense from Tennessee if you could get him out of Tennessee. Played at Tampa. I think that one makes a lot of sense. Jalen Johnson would be great, but would you be willing to trade your second round pick? Because it sounds like other teams are willing to trade their third round pick. So if you're the 49ers, you're going to jump those other teams because you're better than them. You got to offer your second. Would you give next year's second for Jalen Johnson?
Yeah. Yeah,
You
I
would.
would.
Okay.
I would because they have multiple fourths, they have multiple thirds. Like they got their first round pick back. And Jalen Johnson, I mean, listen, we were talking about Patrick Surtain, and that would likely be, I mean, maybe multiple first round picks. I'm not trying to make the point that Johnson and Surtain are on the same level, but the gap of 2 first round picks to a second round pick, the gap in talent is not that big or that significant. So yeah, if second round pick, yes.
So you agree that that's like a primary need, the corner
Yeah.
over other needs. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing the Niners do a few things. Like if they could get like a Zach Ertz and give themselves another tight end, man, I would be interested in that. If they could, there's been talk about Kendrick Bourne. There's an article where some out of New England, I believe, saying that the Patriots may shop Kendrick Bourne, and the Niners are speculated. Does Bourne excite you? To me, if the Niners are going to add a receiver, they need to add a somebody who's a complementary part. And I just think Bourne, I'd rather take a look at Tay Martin and see what Tay Martin's got, or play Willie Snead. Not that Bourne's not better than them; he's better than them. But I mean, these guys are in house and been with you all year. They don't cost as much. I don't know. And some people have a high opinion of Bourne. What do you think?
I like Kendrick Bourne, and I was sad to see him go, but no, I mean that's not what they need. That's not what they need right now. I would rather give Bell some opportunity, Ray some opportunity. I'm fine with the receiving room right now. It's already pretty deep as is, and Bourne is, he's a nice piece, but they don't need Kendrick Bourne. No.
When it comes to the edge rusher, you can never have enough. It's like baseball is like starting pitching. You can never have enough starting pitching. In football, it's totally, pass rushers and edge rush, I think. Watching the 49ers win in the 80s, it just seemed like every time they needed another edge guy, they added another edge guy, and they just always prioritized it. And obviously, they still do largely, right? This team's traded for Jordan Willis. They've traded for Charles Omenihu. They just traded for Randy Gregory. Let's talk about edge rush. Do they need another edge rusher? And, there's the real and the fake, or real and kind of fantasy. I mean, the fantasy is to me Brian Burns or Danielle Hunter. I just think those seem like fantasy options. To
You
me,
think
more
Danielle Hunter's a fantasy? I agree with you on Burns. I don't know if Danielle Hunter is a fantasy. I think
you
that
think
he
so?
might
You
get
think he's going
moved.
to? What do
Yeah,
you think? What
man.
do you think it's going to cost for him? He leads the league in sacks.
I don't think it'll cost as much as what people think.
And also he makes a lot of money. You're talking
He
about $17
does.
million.
He does, but
They want to
Larry,
roll over a bunch. That's not rolling over a bunch if you get Danielle, right? I mean, at least that.
it's still rolling over quite a bit because at this point in the season and what Minnesota still has to eat, I mean, I think their dead cap is still around like 9.5 million of that. So it's actually not that bad. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He's 30 plus. I actually think that he could be had for around a third round pick. And I was talking to a Minnesota Vikings content creator this afternoon on my Behind Enemy Lines show, and he agreed. He's like, listen, I think there's been a lot of talk here about Danielle Hunter. And if they lose this game to the 49ers, and especially if they lose the following week to the Packers, that there's a great chance he's going to get moved. And the team that keeps coming up in our circle is the 49ers, oddly enough.
It'd be awesome if they made that trade like Saturday night.
Like before the game, and he just like flip sidelines.
I mean, seriously, this guy could end everybody's season. He's playing at that high of a level on this surface against Trent Williams with a bum ankle.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that Danielle Hunter couldn't catch the corner and burn the edge and throw Brock Purdy down on that rock hard surface and be like, and all of a sudden it's Sam Darnold's era? I think the one thing about Hunter is he's really, really special. I don't know. I think they would go for a cheaper guy. I was thinking like Arden Key from Tennessee. They know him. They also the other guy who I was thinking of outside of Arden Key. Oh, Josh Uche from the Patriots.
Okay.
They've done deals with and he's fast off the edge. He's young. I know he's a little dinged up right now, but I was thinking cheaper options, but you're thinking that's realistic. You think that's not fantasy, that Burns or somebody like Hunter could possibly come here? Because I mean, that would be
I don't
an
think Burns is
amazing.
realistic. I
I
don't
don't think
think
so.
Burns is. I think that one's. I agree with you. I think that one's a complete fantasy pipe dream.
But a lot of people, I mean, Danielle Hunter would absolutely be incredible. I was listening to Tim Ryan say today, he shredded like salad.
He is though,
I
man. He
mean,
is that
he's
dude.
like, man, there's
Yeah.
no doubt Danielle Hunter is having a ridiculous year. And to me, that's my only real concern about the game Monday night is Danielle Hunter on that surface. And if I were the Niners, I would treat Danielle Hunter the way teams are treating Bosa. Put a guy on that side of the formation and just make him beat two guys and keep hitting them from weird angles and make him have a head on a swivel and just don't let him get into a pass rush flow. Try to block, chip him. Just put a guy over there and give him 2-on-1. See, I mean, make him beat a combo block. I think that's what teams are doing to Bosa at times.
Yeah, most certainly. And I think they got to have a game plan to get the ball out of Brock's hands quickly. It's not going to be as bad as last week because Danielle Hunter is only one person, and that defensive line altogether is not near what the Browns is. But I do think that Danielle Hunter certainly can wreck a game for sure. And, that's the other part of this, right? Is I'm curious to see because the 49ers are likely going to get somebody. I don't know who, if it's even anybody on this list that we talked about, but most of these guys that we've talked about are going to get moved. Which contenders are going to make moves for them? And what is a scary place? I mean, imagine I talked about Seattle earlier, and I said, the Seahawks, they can do in the secondary a lot of what the Browns did, but they don't really have a pass rush that way. What if they traded for Danielle Hunter? All of a sudden, that is a team that their defense worries me, and you've got to play them twice. If Danielle Hunter goes to the Chiefs or something like that, you're adding him to an already pretty good defense. You got Patrick Mahomes and everybody over there. You got it. Now that's something you got to play in the Super Bowl. So we got to really pay attention not only to the 49ers, but where do these guys go if they are moved at the deadline? Which contenders are they going to, and how does that impact the 49ers?
The one I'm waiting on to see if it happens is Budda Baker to the Eagles.
Oh, God, please, no.
I just think Arizona's going to move Budda Baker. I think
you think so?
The Eagles don't have. I mean, the Eagles secondary needs help, and they don't have Avonte Maddox. They moved off of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and I just think they need an impact guy. I think that Jeremy Chin was going there until he got hurt. I could see the Eagles making a big play for Budda Baker. Budda Baker is a great player.
He really
is. I could see them. I could see them trying to add Budda Baker. Kansas City, will they try to go for like a Mike Evans or they added McCole Hardman. You saw that. I mean, that gives them more speed.
I think they're going to sign Frank Clark too. So it'll be like the Kansas City last year again, I guess.
What's Miami going to add?
Miami's already going to get, what's his name back? Jalen Ramsey. But also when you look at Kansas City, who's our pass rusher that we lost this year that went to them that they paid pretty good money? Why am I drawing a blank? Amenahu, yeah. Amenahu hasn't even played yet.
Right. No, I know. Yeah, so. He's a talent. He's a talented player. That's the who gets what at the deadline. The one thing about it is a lot of people are speculating there's going to be a lot of teams at the bottom of the league that may be aggressive in selling just simply because everybody wants Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Drake May, that these guys are such coveted quarterbacks. There might be some teams that are willing to sell,
where does Devontae Adams go? That's another one.
And the 49ers are a clear buyer. You know what? Bleacher Report had them in the running for Leonard Williams. What do you think? I mean, that kind of leads us into the next topic I wanted to get to is what the heck with the run game? Niners were giving up 65 yards a game. They gave up 160. Yeah. They gave up 4.7 a carry. This team didn't even have Nick Chubb. I mean, to me, if you want to talk about what's the one story of this game, is Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw, I guess, should be an all-pro player, which he probably should. And that's the other thing. The Niners were missing Dre Greenlaw, and I don't think people realize how great Greenlaw really is. He plays in the shadow of Warner. Warner gets all the love. Greenlaw is just an absolute monster. and he's having an amazing year. He didn't play in this game. And I just find it hard to believe that they would have ran as well if he had. But that's interesting. So what about inside backer? I mean, can the Niners get Jalen Graham and D. Winters ready to go, or are they redshirt type players? They made Frankie Louvu in Carolina could be a under the radar kind of a pickup for the Niners. Played for Wilkes last year, veteran linebacker who can do a bunch of things. I don't know, but the run D, how serious of an issue is it?
I don't think it's that big of an issue if Greenlaw's playing. I was actually shocked, absolutely shocked that Greenlaw made that big of a difference. I trust me, I know that he's the tone setter. I came on your channel with Vish right before game 1 and said that he was the thumper, he was the tone setter. It wasn't.
Why are you disrespecting Greenlaw?
Yeah, I know exactly. And I said all those things, and actually I got a lot of pushback because of what I said about Warner and saying he was a grab and drag type of tackler and he wasn't the thumper, and and people got mad at that. But Greenlaw, I mean, my gosh, I didn't expect that necessarily. I knew he was important. Now we know just how important he is. And remember the run game going into week 1, we talked about it. Is it it's a concern? Is it something that was a preseason thing? What is it? Well, apparently Greenlaw is the missing elixir. If he's out, all bets are off and you can run the ball on the 49ers. That was a bit surprising and a bit worrying, actually.
Well, I mean, to me, the biggest loss in the offseason, everybody talked about other losses and different moves, but Azeez Al-Shaair, I mean, the guy is awesome. Go look at what Azeez Al-Shaair did last week. He had like 16 tackles.
I know.
I mean, the guy's amazing. And he's 235. They drafted him as an undrafted free agent, and they just couldn't pay him because he got the free agency. He only plays 25% of the snaps. You're going to pay him some fat salary for a guy who plays 25% of the snaps. They probably, in hindsight, should have tried to do it, because now a guy like Al-Shaair would be the guy that would be taking up the slack and keeping them at that high level. Instead, I mean, I like Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. Don't get me wrong; he's fast. He's a great coverage player, safety in Tucson. But Burks is more of a special team player, and it's like they really lost a lot when they lost Greenlaw. Hopefully, he can go Monday night, because I think they can't run it, and they're fumbling. But the Niners need Greenlaw to stop the run.
Yeah, and they're especially going to need him the following week because Mixon's a pretty damn good running back as well. But yeah, I mean, Burks and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles are good when Greenlaw and Warner are both on the field. But if you pull one of them out and now they're the replacement, there's a massive drop off there. When you had Azeez, there was still a drop off, but it wasn't that steep. Greenlaw is, and it's interesting because Fred Warner has told us every chance he gets, whatever you think of me, you should think of Dre Greenlaw. He's every bit as good as I am, every bit as important as I am. We didn't necessarily believe that. We do now. We definitely do now.
They're both all pro players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say, oh, you're rah-rah Niner or whatever. I really believe that. Greenlaw is the tone-setting player on this defense. He's physical. Look at the throw down. Who was it Pollard that he threw down out of bounds?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just like the message sent right there. That easily could have been a penalty. And he walks that edge, and you got to ride with some of the good, take the good with the bad on some of that stuff. But I mean, nobody hits harder, and he's just a menace. He's a fantastic defensive player. We're going to try to get him on the show. Hopefully, maybe I didn't see him in the locker room today. Okay. What do you, the Vikings blitz a ton. And because of that, they get these one-on-ones with Danielle Hunter from time to time. And so there's some plays, there's going to be some broken plays where Danielle Hunter gets vaulted into the backfield, and Brock's going to have to absolutely throw it away. But what do you think? I mean, it's the Giants blitzed a ton. The Niners have faced that before. It's like, I almost feel like blitzing kind of gives the young quarterback more of a defined read of where to go. And he's young, but he's a pretty good processor of what he's seen at the line. Do you think the Vikings will blitz? They blitzed last week 71% of the passing snaps. I mean, that's a high percentage, even for them. I think it was their highest percentage in going back to like week 1. What do you think? I mean, are they going to slow it down against the Niners and Purdy because Purdy's going to pick them apart, or are they going to bring the blitz all night long on Purdy?
Man, I don't. I think bringing the blitz would be a mistake. What's interesting about Minnesota is every single problem that the Cleveland Browns presented for the 49ers. And I don't think that was a one-off game, by the way. I just think styles make matchups. If you had a completely healthy Cleveland Browns team and a completely healthy 49ers team, I think Cleveland might win a majority of those games just because of stylistically the matchup. It doesn't favor the Niners. Every problem that the Browns present is the exact opposite for Minnesota. Minnesota can't run the ball. The Browns ran the ball at a very high clip. Minnesota is not a great defensive team. The Browns are on a historic pace. There's inclement weather in Cleveland. That can't happen in a dome. So
Right.
everything that went wrong for the 49ers that could, and you have to add in, let's say CMC and even Debo don't play. Okay. It's very different losing those players mid-game than it is knowing they're not going to play and preparing as if they're not going to play for a full week leading into a game. Everything that went wrong last week, I don't see any of that being an issue this week. I think that they're going to get ripped apart no matter what they do.
Who do you think Cousins leans on? Is it Hawkinson? I mean, they've really struggled to run it with Madison, Akers, but they do have TJ Hawkinson. They have KJ Osborne. I've got Jordan Addison on my fantasy team, so he's slithery. I mean, he's not big and not physical, and you can definitely reroute him at the line, but he's very quick, very talented, great ball skills, great ability at the catch point for a rookie. Very very poised catcher of the ball. What do you think of the weapons against the Niners secondary?
Yeah, I think they're toast too. I mean, not having Jefferson is massive, massive. Jefferson is, if not the best receiver, second best receiver in the league right now. I mean, that is a huge loss for the Vikings. And, you saw it last week. I mean, Kirk Cousins wasn't his typical self against not the best defense in Chicago. And I think that the 49ers can cause a lot of problems there. I think that I would say, he does like to he definitely does like to hit his receivers, his outside receivers. So I still think that Addison can have a pretty decent game. If you've got him on the fantasy team, I would probably recommend playing him, but I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to matter, Larry. I really don't.
You're seeing blowout in this game?
31-13, something like that. And I know, listen, I know that we both said this last week against Cleveland. I didn't think that Cleveland with PJ Walker, no Batonio, who's their best offensive lineman, no Chubb. I didn't think their offense would be able to put up points, and they put up enough.
Well, Mari Cooper made some amazing catches.
For sure.
He was fantastic. The Browns, I mean, to me, the surprise of the day was the Browns running for almost 5 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
That was surprising. And I wonder if, the Niners, struggled to stop the run in this game. They are leaning an awful lot on two guys in Warner and Greenlaw. They struggled to stop the run in the preseason, I think largely because those guys weren't playing a lot. The Warner and Greenlaw were not playing a ton of snaps, and they were leaning on the young kids. But here's the question: what's the best way to bring these young kids along? There's no doubt that I think both D. Winters and Jalen Graham have starting caliber potential. Would you give these guys some run and try to bring them along here in these games? Because it seems to me that they may shoot a bad gap here or there, but both those guys are young and fast and athletic and hit, and I think they may need that, especially as the physical toll of the season wears on. It feels like they're redshirting those guys, and I don't know that they can afford to.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talked right before the roster cuts, I had said that I wanted to move them up the depth chart, and even if that meant getting rid of somebody like Flanagan Foles and trading him or Burks or something like that, I was fine doing that because I do think that they're very talented, and I think they should be playing. But the 49ers are probably the best in the league at redshirting players. I
know.
We talk about it every offseason, Larry, every single offseason. Okay, who's the guy that didn't do anything last year that's going to play this year and make a difference? And every single year, that player pops. It's going to happen next year. And, I mean, what they have is fine, but it would be nice to get but the other part is this, Larry, when you're trying to chase a Super Bowl, like, do you really have time to be mixing in guys that are going to miss assignments? And I mean, everything right now has to be perfect. Every game is so important. They're trying to get the number 1 seed. It's why they never could wait for Lance. It's why, I mean, if Moody does this again, I'm sorry. I don't care where you were drafted. They've got to find out a way to replace him. They can't roll with that. If you can't trust him, they don't have time to wait. They just don't. They've got to win a ring this year. They have to.
I agree. I mean, you don't go this far. I mean, that's why. And then, Mike Silver has written stuff in the Chronicle about the Robbie Gould versus Jake Moody decision that, you had a guy that was 38 for 38 or something like that in the playoffs. And you chose to go with a rookie in your make it or break it year. And he's questioning that decision. And after watching him miss a 41-yarder with the the game on the line, some people do, some people don't. Some people don't have the stomach for it. Was it just a bad kick? Everybody's entitled to one. Only time's going to tell, really. We don't know. But there's a level of consistency that, unfortunately, he's going to be held to a higher standard than kickers around the league. Why? Because Niner fans are used to Robbie Gould. When a kicker's got a defined range, then guess what? You just don't attempt kicks usually out of his range. So what is your fan base experience? Nothing but kicks that you can make. And when you made a high percentage and you made all your kicks in the playoffs, the standard for the place kicker struggle, place kicker performance is really, really, really high with the fans. So their expectations are crazy high. This is a young player who, people miss kicks, right? He's a rookie kicker. You knew there was going to be some inconsistency. Was it wise for them to choose the talented rookie kicker who can make it from 60, but probably isn't as consistent as the 18-year vet that they had in their locker room a year ago? Would you question it? How long do they go with Moody? Weigh in on kicker gate. Where are you with the Niners and the kicker?
Yeah, I mean, I questioned it from the beginning when they drafted Moody on the 3rd round. I was like, "This is what are you doing?" Like, the value's just not there unless Moody is a top 3 kicker in the league for many, many years, and maybe he'll still be that. I'm not saying he can't be that, but the value wasn't there just because the Patriots were going to take him in round 4. Well, that was really smart of them to take a kicker as well because that's, they don't have any holes on that roster. I'm sure that they couldn't have used any good player that was still remaining at that point.
Right.
So, just because one bad team's about to make a bad decision doesn't mean that the 49ers should follow suit and be like, well, we just got to have this kicker. Because the reality of the situation is this: free agent kickers, undrafted free agents, is a majority of what the league is filled with. And you're seeing it again this year. You've got a rookie kicker in Dallas who I think he was undrafted as well. He's a little bit older, but he was a soccer player. Yeah, I don't think he's missed a kick all year. He's been very reliable. There were other avenues. And yes, Robbie Gould was here. Maybe they couldn't re-sign Robbie Gould. Let's remove him from the equation. You still had other options. You had Zane Gonzalez on this team. You could have brought in an undrafted rookie free agent and had them compete. Obviously, we know that Zane got injured, so the rookie probably would have won out. Or I think Mason Crosby's still out there. I mean, talk about a reliable veteran who can kick in elements. I mean, that right there is a guy that can do it as well. It didn't have to be Robbie Gould. There were other options. I just don't know if this one was the right decision. Yes, Moody deserves grace. He's a rookie. I understand that. But they just don't have time. And kicker is one of those things that you're either really, really good or you're not. And it usually happens right away. And once kickers start to get the yips, I mean, who knows? All bets are off.
And I like guys watching it who, when you're watching a kicker, I like when they have a problem that you can correct, Oh, you just hooked them both, Instead, he hooked one and pushed one.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like missed on both sides. So
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if that gets to a guy after a while. We're going to find out. I'm sure they'll go right back to him early in the first half, trying to get him, feeling good. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes. You never know. And the guy's got a strong leg. He made a bunch in practice. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I talked to him a couple times. He's pretty solid. He's not, fidgety or nervous or lacks confidence or can't look in the eyes. Calm and solid, and he's interested. He's engaged. It's not like he's one of these guys that his head's somewhere else or he looks like he's fragile. His nickname's Money, for crying out loud, right? I mean, come on. The guy kicked in the big house. He'll get it.
There's another player. His nickname was Money. How did that work out in the NFL?
Who are you thinking of?
Money Manziel.
Oh yeah, that Johnny. There was time when I thought Johnny was going to be damn good. Seriously. What do you make of the fact that Kittle is so underutilized? Kyle was asked about that a little bit today. What's your thought on Kittle being underutilized?
That one, I can't put a finger on. I mean, what did he have? 2 targets this last week. Everybody thinks it's because he's staying in and blocking, and he's not. I mean, he's out on 83% of the pass plays he's running routes. So it's not because he's staying in and blocking. He's just not getting the ball. Has he lost a step? Maybe. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries, but it's not like he's not separating at all or can't be effective. I mean, he just came off of a 3-catch, 3-touchdown game against the Cowboys. I mean, especially when Debo went out and CMC went out, I was shocked that he really wasn't getting any looks. I don't understand that. And that's not a Brock Purdy problem. That's a Kyle Shanahan thing. He's got to figure out how to get Kittle involved. And that's one thing. What's interesting about the 49ers and the way that they've really kind of won a lot of their games with Kyle Shanahan is they've stacked positions that exploit linebackers. You got Kittle. You've always had, a plethora of good running backs and juice. And between those three, you can exploit linebackers. And there aren't many teams, and the 49ers are maybe the only one that has linebackers that can really cover this whole slew of weapons that the 49ers have. I don't know. They've gotten away from that a little bit. Brandon Ayuk is a very good player. I understand that. But they've got to get back to exploiting linebackers. And the way that you can do that is with Kittle. I mean, how many good linebackers are in the league right now, Larry? I mean, honestly, when you look across the league, how many really good linebackers are in the league?
Well, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, when you watch the Niners, you feel like they're plentiful, but when you look around the league, you're like, wow, there's not every team has guys that can cover the tight end. That's why I was so kind of hot to trot on Jeremy Chin, because I thought, you know what, Chin might be a nice cover guy for Kelsey, but Chin's now out for 6 weeks, which probably means he does not get moved at the deadline. I don't know. It's their choices at how they're going to do things here is going to be really, really interesting to watch. One of my now, do you stream with Rohan?
I have. When I was at camp, he and I went every day because we were at camp together and we were bouncing ideas off each other. So yeah, definitely a fan of Rohan, but no, we don't currently have a schedule or anything.
You don't currently stream. He wrote an article. And I was talking to him the other day, or we were texting back and forth, I should say. But he wrote an article, the guys that at the trade deadline that he thinks the Niners ought to look at. Okay. And he's got Brian Burns, which would be fantastic. If you get Brian Burns, that would be an amazing thing. 12 and a half sacks last year. He's got 4 sacks through 6 games this year. Carolina's definitely in rebuilding mode. That would be interesting. Andre Dillard. Okay. I don't look at Andre Dillard as a major upgrade from Colton McKivitz. So if you want him to just be a depth piece, okay. Jalen Johnson from the Bears. That's an interesting name. There's already been multiple rumors saying the Niners are called on Jalen Johnson. I think you're probably gonna have to trade a 2nd-round pick. He's only 24, but I think he's a good, tenacious, cocky, talented young corner. That's probably the most interesting name so far. But then he's got 2 names that I don't get here. He's got Kaiir Elam from the Bills. And I just don't get that because, I mean, why is Buffalo that they've lost Tre'Davious White and they're going to move Elam? I don't know about that, Rohan. And then this one is the one that, if this is true, he's got Devin Lloyd of the Jaguars, who Devin Lloyd is, if that guy's out there on the table, that's the guy to go get. I don't care if you have Greenlaw and who else you got. Devin Lloyd is going to be awesome I mean, if they're already pivoting off of Devin Lloyd, the former Utah Ute, that would be. I mean, he is a really good football player. Jacksonville's beating the Saints as we speak, 24-16 in the fourth quarter, and Devin Lloyd's already got what has he got? 6 tackles, 3 solo, a pass defensed. I mean, he's a really good football player. I doubt that he's available. But I mean, if he's out there, Jesse, go get Devin Lloyd. That would
Oh
be the guy that I
yeah,
get.
yeah. Lloyd would be fantastic, but I mean, why? For the same reasons that you just talked about Buffalo, why would they trade Kyer Elam? The Jaguars are in the hunt. Like they're starting to ascend a little bit. No, I just don't see why he would be available. This team's trying to win games and win games in the playoffs as well. That one doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The other thing on a more of a national look at the trade deadline, there's articles speculating about what trades we are going to see. And there's some interesting names in here. And of course, they've mentioned, hey, Claypool's been moved and Trey's been moved and McCole Hardman got moved and the deadline's October 31st. And they're like, here, guys, 5 examples of players who may be on the move ahead of the trade deadline. They've got Braxton Berrios. Okay, he's a nice little shifty slot receiver. I liked him at Miami. Buda Baker, which I already mentioned to you. But how about this name? Kyler Murray. Is Kyler Murray going to be traded? Dalvin Cook is another guy on their list. And Russell Wilson. They have Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray being on the trade table before the end of the month. What do you think of that? I mean, and which do you like either of those guys going forward? Not necessarily for the 49ers, but just if you were a team that needed a quarterback.
I like Kyler Murray. I mean, I think Kyler Murray's got a ton of talent. A ton of talent. There's some questions with the work ethic and what have you. What's true, what's not, I'm not sure. But I think Kyler Murray's got a ton of talent. I certainly would love him going forward. But I just don't understand either of those trades. Like, how does Denver or Arizona pull that off? You know how much dead money? I mean, they've got to be eating like 70, 80 million in dead money. Like, how's that even possible, Larry? I can't see that happening.
Arizona clearly wants to go with Dobbs. They love Dobbs. And as far as Russell, I mean, somebody's not going to be there between Peyton and Wilson. When you have that high profile of a quarterback and that high profile of a head coach, and it doesn't work, they don't just both go down with the ship typically, right? So somebody's leaving. Either Sean's going to have a short run in Denver, or Russell's probably on the move because Denver's not winning and they look stale. And
Yeah,
don't you think
Dobbs.
somebody gets blamed there?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we knew that marriage wasn't going to work right away because Peyton had just come off of being on TV and ragging on Russell Wilson. So you knew that probably wasn't going to work out too well. I mean, everything that's happening there is interesting to say the least. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but who wants Russell Wilson at this stage? He's been playing decent. But when it comes to Dobbs, I don't understand why you would choose Dobbs over um, Kyler Murray. Dobbs had a nice little start. It was a good little story. But in the last, he'd gone from throwing 0 interceptions. Remember, that was the thing. He and Brock Purdy and Buddy from the Texans hadn't CJ Stroud hadn't thrown any interceptions. To the last 2 weeks, he's thrown 3 interceptions and completed about 48% of his passes over the last 2 weeks. Like, he's fallen back down to earth. The Dobbs thing doesn't make any sense.
Brandon Ayuk. What did you think of his performance last week? What do you expect to see from him Monday night?
Oh, I mean, Brandon Ayuk, I would expect to have a really good game on Monday night, but he was definitely off. The unfortunate thing was, and I said this as soon as it happened, that drop, the one that probably would have been a touchdown, where Purdy threw an absolute dime. I mean, that thing was a seed, pressure in his face, right on the hands, and it was a drop. You could tell that Purdy was struggling a little bit, and that right there was like enough to see it through and probably turn things around. Maybe that whole day would have been different for him, but things happen. Players drop the football, and it wasn't different for him. I will say this, people are saying 3 drops. I think he was only recorded as 1 drop. I only had him as 1 drop. I mean, there was 2 that hit his hands. One of them, the only 3 that I can remember that hit his hands was that one, clear drop, absolute dot. There was another one where he's running full speed and the ball was here. He literally turns his whole body. He does get his hands on it, but yes, I expect a receiver who's number 1 receiver to make that catch. I don't think I would chart that as a drop. And then the only other one that he got his hands on that I remember was he was diving for the ball and it hit his hands, but it would have been a spectacular catch. So I only had him as 1 drop, but still wasn't his best day by any means. I mean, he can play a lot better.
They need him to play better. I mean, they absolutely need. He was incredible this summer. I mean, every ball in the air was his.
And he's been incredible this year to that point too, really.
Yeah. Well, not in this game, but yeah, they needed it, and they needed him in this game. So, we're going to see. I mean, this is a really important game. I know the 49ers are 5-1 and they've beaten some teams by good margins and everybody's feeling like, oh, they're going to roll everybody. But this is a big game. Why? Because then you got the Bengals on a short week flying back across the country. They're coming off the bye. They're starting to feel good. You're deep. Then you may start really looking for DBs because you're gonna be staring at Chase and Higgins and Boyd and Burrow and I don't know.
Mixon.
Yeah, I mean they're in a spot on their because of the way the rest shakes out or lack thereof. In the comparison between them and the Bengals, puts a lot of pressure on the Niners to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you can't
on
you
the road
can't.
too on national TV on the road against a veteran quarterback. It's not necessarily the easiest spot.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is them losing to Cleveland tells me there's almost 0 chance that they lose this game. If they had beaten Cleveland, let's say they had just skated by the skin of their teeth, Moody makes that field goal and they win.
Right.
I think there would be a chance that Minnesota might be able to creep up, because again, it's a lot of travel. They chose, instead of staying in the middle of the country, they chose to go all the way back home and then fly all the way back, which we'll see how that plays into things. But based off of them losing, they are pissed off. They want to get that one back. I bet you the only frustration in that building right now is that they have to wait till Monday to play football. Like they are ready to go. They're ready to get that back. And like I said, Minnesota, unfortunately for the Vikings, and fortunately for the 49ers, there's not a lot there to worry the 49ers. It's not at all like last week's matchup. So I think they're going to be fine.
It's not. They don't have the same. I mean, without Jefferson, Niners dodged a bullet here. Keith
if Jefferson was playing, I would say, okay, they're definitely, because that offense can score with anybody when Jefferson is playing.
They're going to get Jefferson. They were slated to get Jefferson and Chase back-to-back weeks. Who do you want? You can have either one of those guys. Who's better, Jefferson or Chase? Which LSU Tiger is the better player?
I mean, God, can you go wrong either way? I don't know, man. I'd probably go slightly Jefferson, but it's really close.
Yeah. Jefferson is more machine-like in his production. Where you watch him week after week after week, and he doesn't have bad weeks. Chase has bad weeks, but you almost get the vibe that Chase is the best.
He also gets targeted 19 times in a game, and you're like, how the hell is this guy always open?
Yeah. I just thought Chase was better at LSU, and it's like, I don't know. There's something really special about Chase. When he wants it, it's like his body control. I asked Brandon Allen about him, and he's like, yeah, his body control is his confidence, his body control, his route running, his hands. He's like, this guy can just any individual play where he just is set on getting open. He can get open.
Yeah.
Against any coverage in any corner at any point. He's in that kind of category. Okay, did we read this one before? If Debo is out, do you think we see more Bell or McLeod? Seems we saw more McLeod in Cleveland. I would like to see Bell get more chances. He's come up big.
Yeah, I think we saw that one.
We had that one.
But that wasn't what was on the screen just now, was that?
No, that's this one right here.
I was like, wait a minute,
your Mason
I didn't read any of that.
Your Mason take is on point for me as a B-ball. I had a player who was a good scorer but couldn't play him because his defense was lacking. There we go. Comparing that kid to a basketball player. Tinker, trade deadline. We need a DB, a cornerback, I think. Just saying.
I agree, Tinker.
There you go. Legendary Answers says, I don't want to see CMC anymore to the playoffs.
Well, that's extreme. I don't know about all that. I want to get the
Wow.
number 1 seed. I would definitely love to see
Wow.
CMC again, but a lot of people are saying this, Larry. They want him to sit until the bye week, and even if it means they go 1-1, like they're willing to do it. I would prefer to win both these games. I don't think going in the bye week at 6-2 would be the worst thing in the world, especially if that's what it takes to get CMC fully healthy. But I would like to see CMC play next week if he can.
I would say, to me, it's like this is a marathon. Diversify your workload, right? I mean, spread it around. Why are you gonna have 2 guys carry everybody else across a desert, or are you gonna have 20 guys carrying it? I mean, it's like have more, get these other guys involved. I want to see more Braden Willis. I want to see more Jordan Mason. I want to see more Christian McCaffrey or more Elijah Mitchell. Tight end wise, they may need another tight end, because I think other than Kittle, I don't know if I want to see more of the other guys right now. That's a tough one. I think they could use a Zach Ertz. Legendary Answer says, make our weapons earn their paychecks.
Yeah, make the other weapons, not just CMC. I mean, that's the thing, Larry. That is the hard part. It's like we talked about the touches from CMC. He was second in the league, 1 touch behind Etienne, and he missed a whole half of a game. I mean, he would have been number 1 in the league in touches on a team that has 2 other ex-All-Pros and an ascending Brandon Ayuk. I don't understand that. I mean, these other players have to get involved more. They have to. You can't just spam CMC. I know he's great, and he's clearly Shanahan looks at him and is like, he is the best, which says a lot about who CMC is and how damn good he is, that you can get on the field with other multiple All-Pros and you are clearly the best player. That says a lot about how great he is, but that doesn't mean that you spam him.
I would just say, especially running backs have a hard time protecting themselves when they're dinged up. Mm-hmm. So I would say sit them. You have other guys. Go with Mason. Go with Ty Davis Price. Go with anybody but CMC and try to win the game. I wouldn't question it. I will not be here on Tuesday morning going, they didn't play McCaffrey. What? What the heck's going on here? He's their best. No, I promise you, I will not be saying that on Tuesday morning. I think it's a long, long run. Your odds in Vegas are going to go down if you lose McCaffrey for the year. So bring your whole roster along. There are teams in the league that have no other back. Dallas has Rico Dowdell and Deuce Vaughn. I mean, you could be Dallas. You're not Dallas. You've got other backs. Use them. That would be my message. And I would have no problem saying that if Shanahan was here. The one thing I don't understand is why in Shanahan's mind Mitchell is clearly in front of Mason. And that would be the one thing that I would love to, I don't want to be that guy who on the 5-1 team where everybody's rolling takes the one kind of questionable spot. Just be like, yeah. But the more I watch Mason, the more I think, who wants to tackle that guy? The more I watch Mitchell take tackles for losses in the backfield, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe Mitchell, maybe he's just not healthy. Maybe he's not right, but he just seems like he's getting crushed in the backfield, where Mason is this big, strong, fast guy who's rumbling. And I'd like to see more Mason. I think Mason's a better back at this point.
Let me ask you this, because we're talking about how we expect the 49ers to win. Let's go worst case scenario and say that Debo, CMC, and Trent are all out. Are you worried a little bit now about the Vikings?
No, because I think once you have a plan to use other guys, I like the other Niner receivers. I'm okay with Willie. I'm okay with Tay Martin. I'm okay with Ronnie Bell. I think Snead and Bell. I mean, these guys can do it. I mean, they can play right now. They can make catches. I actually have confidence in the depth they have at wide receiver.
Okay.
And to me, if you're going to trade for a wide receiver, the only kind of wide receiver you want is a vertical threat. If you don't think Danny Gray is going to get back and play and help. It would be nice to have a vertical threat. It really would. I mean, Andy Reid knows a lot about offensive football. There's a reason he just traded for McCole Hardman, because he understands you got to have that vertical threat to create the space for all these guys underneath. Even if the guy's just running out there, if you don't have a guy who can run, teams don't defend you the same way. So I think that's something to look forward to. The Niners feel like they have a fast enough receiver. McCune says, if your next man up is Ambry Thomas, it's a problem.
Yeah, that's going back to the corner thing. Yeah,
Knees says we should simply trade him for Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz 9-1 against Kyle, by the way.
Yeah, that's
9-1 against
stat.
Kyle.
It's a crazy.
You make of that? That's amazing.
Kyle's one of those guys that the reason that the 49ers run the wide nine and run this defense is because it gives his offense problems. You would think he would go after this week and be like, okay, all right. So we already run the wide nine. We got that. However, we're not getting home the way that we normally do. We've invested for 3 straight years in a secondary that is primarily run man throughout their college career or other stops in the NFL. And we keep playing the softest zone in the NFL. Done with it. We're going to continue to do the wide nine. We're going to put pressure on that front four to get home. They're getting the quarterback hits. They're getting the pressures. They're getting all those things. They're just not getting the sack totals. And the reason for that is because they're playing soft coverage. They're giving wide receivers too much space 5 yards and in. And so they've got safety blankets. Allow that pass rush to get home. You know what? We're doing what Cleveland does, and we're trying that for a week and making these teams beat us. Somehow we'll have 2 safeties over the top to protect these guys in man coverage in case something goes awry. But we're going to dominate with our pass rush and play press man. I mean, when does that happen, or does it happen?
Well, I mean, it's a great point. I think that it will always wind up being a combination thereof of man and zone. But to me, the point's the same, which is even if you're playing a zone, they got to stop playing the soft zone and hug up on these guys and challenge them a little bit more at the line of scrimmage. If you're going to, with this kind of pass rush, make the quarterback, hold the ball a little bit instead of giving him the easy underneath pass where he can establish a rhythm. I agree. I'd like to see them play a little bit more of a coordinated front to back kind of a plan where the back is dialed up on speed with the rush. Right now, it seems like they're playing back, not, almost like the philosophy of Wilkes is, look, we got a great offense. We got the number 1 defense. We can rush 4 and drop 7 all day. We think you're going to make a mistake and fall behind the chains. If we pin you inside the 20 and make you drive 85 yards, we'll lean on our defense and play conservatively. It's just a little conservative. And against some quarterbacks, they get into a rhythm, and against the best teams, you can't challenge everybody all year, but I agree. Right now, what we're seeing is a zone that seems forgiving behind a rush that's, sometimes getting there, sometimes isn't, but more times than not is putting pressure on the quarterback, but the quarterback has a safety valve underneath, and the coverage isn't tight enough. They need another DB. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, I'd be really afraid to lean on some of the guys that they have. They had better depth in training camp, and then they lost Jameson. I don't think they've kind of replenished that depth, or they've kind of challenged Ambry to step up and, can he or can he? And are they going to get anything out of Womack? Are they going to get anything out of Luter? That's the one thing. If John Lynch were sitting here, to me, if you know that Womack's coming back and looking great, if you know that Luter has looked phenomenal in practice, and you have belief in those guys, then you probably don't need to worry about the corner market. But if you have no faith in either one of those guys being a major contributor, then I think you have to get in the corner market.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly they do. And yes, I mean, I think just playing some sort of press off the line has to be done, and especially when you're playing a team like Cleveland last week where you're playing a really bad quarterback, or you're playing a good quarterback but has really no weapons that you're worried about. Why play this game and give them the easy options? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
One thought on the Detroit Lions. What do you think about the Detroit Lions, Jesse? The more I watch Detroit, I mean, now they don't have Emmanuel Mosley, tore his ACL. He's done for the year. And right now they don't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but you saw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson talking trash to Debo and
Yeah.
acting really angry that Debo's getting paid, and sounded like he was kind of obsessing on Debo, to be honest. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a phenomenal football player, and the Lions look better and better and better every week that goes by. Where are you on the Lions as a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson could come back, I mean, he tore his pec. They're saying he should be back tail end of the season, week 17, week 18 for sure for the playoff run. If he's back and he's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I mean, they're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. And I think the concern about them isn't necessarily even the playoffs. Young teams have to go through things usually. They don't just come in, roll into the playoffs and make Super Bowl runs. That's not usually what happens, and I wouldn't expect that from the Lions. But the number 1 seed is very important, and if they snatch that from the 49ers, they're a team that certainly could. They've got a very wide open schedule. They're a good team. They don't have a lot of weaknesses. I mean, Ben Johnson might be the best offensive coordinator, pure offensive coordinator in the league. I know Kyle Shanahan's a play caller and Andy Reid, but just as an offensive coordinator, he's the next guy up, man. That guy is doing some phenomenal things. He was doing them last year. He's doing them again this year. And this team has had some injuries. They're battling through those injuries. They've had suspensions. They're battling through that. And if everybody comes back and is healthy at the same time, man, the Lions are not going to be an easy out for anybody.
No, no. The one thing, they're throwing short. They're not really going down the field. Their receivers are dropping the ball. They're committing to running the football. And Hutchinson and they're is leading the way up front. I don't think they've got enough on the back seven to really contend with the Niners and the Eagles. But you know what? They're formidable. They got speed. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta is a really good tight end. I think the one thing about the Lions that's kind of scary is they may have the best, most powerful O line. With Sewell and Decker and Ragnow, and that's a good line that they have. And people talk about Dallas's line, but Detroit's line is pretty good. I mean, Goff has played pretty well, but it's partly because he's got a true number 1 receiver in Amon-Ra and all kinds of options underneath and a really good offensive line.
Yeah, so, and when you really look across that team, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's basically like the better version of Debo right now. I mean, that's what he is at this very moment. And then they've got Jameson, who was a rookie last year. He had a serious injuries coming back from. He had the suspension. They brought him back early from that. The league changed their mind on the gambling stuff. But he's their vertical threat. We talk about how the 49ers need one. Well, he's that for them. And then Laporta's their like safety valve. So they've got all that. Plus they have 2 running backs that are different, but both very effective. Like you said, a stacked offensive line and a quarterback who doesn't make a ton of mistakes. I mean, they really, especially offensively, have got almost everything you could want. They are a very good team. And then the coordinator is, I'm telling you, man, if you want to geek out, go watch what Ben Johnson's doing in both the run game and the pass game and how he disguises both. He's doing really, really good things over in Detroit.
I love both coordinators. Aaron Glenn, without a lot of big time talent, they're getting results in the secondary. Yeah. So it's like Aaron Glenn's bringing them along. They got Hutchinson up front. I mean, to me, it'll be interesting to see if the Lions add something on the defensive side because they need a couple of defensive players. But man, they're coming. I don't know if it's going to be this year. Maybe it'll be next year. Dazza says, given how bad our run D was without Greenlaw, is there a linebacker or a D tackle that we could get? Greenlaw's often injured. I threw out Frankie Louvu before. He's from Carolina. He's hardly a star, but I could see that. And then, Bleacher Report had them connected to Leonard Williams. I thought that was kind of an interesting name. He's a free agent, New York Giants defensive tackle, played at SC. Pretty angular, can rush the passer and play the run. Veteran talent for sure. That's interesting. What do you think of Leonard Williams?
Oh, I mean, I would love to have Leonard Williams. I think he's a damn good player, especially with everybody else that the 49ers have. But I don't know how realistic it is. I also think that Kinlaw's playing pretty good as well. I mean,
Yeah,
the
he had
depth,
a
the
great
depth,
grade this week.
yeah, the depth issue is not the interior defensive line at all. It really is. Once Greenlaw was out, that was it. I mean, they were playing fine against the run up until that point. So let's just hope that Greenlaw's healthy.
Can't get right. Has this dramatic idea: trade for Devontae, put Debo in the slot. What's that going to cost you? To me, it seems like the Raiders would rather dissolve their franchise than trade to the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that Khalil Mack, once upon a time, the 49ers offered more than the Bears did, and they were like, no, we're not trading him to you.
I had a guy in my stream last night with Kevin. We're doing the call-in deal, and he's like, he had made a prediction earlier that was correct, and he was coming back with prediction number 2. And so, what is prediction number 2? And he's like, 49ers are going to trade a first-round pick to the Raiders for Max Crosby. And at first I laughed. I was like, that's ridiculous. But who knows what the Raiders situation is. They act like they're going to trade for Danielle Hunter or Brian Burns and add to Max Crosby. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know if Crosby's available, but I know the Raiders probably look for their quarterback in the future. Would love to stock picks. Would you trade? I don't think that I said to the caller, I said, I don't think the Raiders would do that. I think you'd probably have to offer 2 number ones to get Crosby. But if you could get Crosby for a number 1, would you make that trade?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Without hesitation. Without hesitation. Yes.
Yeah. It was a great video caller, and it was good. It was a good. He laid out his case too. He definitely was convincing. I can't imagine if the Raiders don't want to give Khalil Mack to the Niners. The last thing they want to do is trade, Max Crosby. All I would say is, I'm not saying they couldn't be done, but like the price for the Niners would be like double.
It would be
Something
more than a first round pick. That's a guarantee.
Definitely. Vish pissed off brother Bob says late had trial today. Purdy's pimp. You still think Brock Purdy is king? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think he's king.
Was it trial for you, or was it like your jury duty?
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that, man. Try to stay out of the joint, man.
That could go multiple different ways, brother Bob.
Yeah.
I think he's a lawyer. Actually, I think he might be a lawyer.
Let's hope.
The only reason I say that is because he's called in before and he was like suited to the nines. I'm like, yeah, he's probably a lawyer.
Lawyer or plaintiff? It's hard to see that he would be a defendant.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe he could be a defendant. Oh, wait a second. But he's back. He says Purdy's pimp. So Purdy needs a gadget running back, a.k.a. Christian McCaffrey, to succeed. Oh, I knew you were going to bring this up. He jumped on this because Hensley jumped on this. Grant made the point that I forget exactly how we got into the discussion about Purdy struggling. And I said, it's when you're not a quarterback that drives the ball down the field as Purdy is more known as a guy who will take shots down the field, but the Niners offense is about throwing short to intermediate and then getting run after the catch. I mean, how many years do we need to watch it before we realize that's the O? So that's what the guy does. And he operates the offense at a really high level because he throws basically accurate and with anticipation, and he processes well at the line when things are going well. In this game, he really, really struggled. And he didn't have Debo, and he's going up against the number 1 D, and then he didn't have McCaffrey. And suddenly it's like, whoa, he doesn't look as good. And I said to Grant, I said, if you don't have a quarterback that's going to throw the ball down the field and your offense is based on throwing short, and then you don't have the 2 guys you throw short to, you're going to struggle. And that was part of my assessment of why Brock struggled in this game. But
that makes
brother Bob.
That makes
brother Bob is basically saying you're saying he needs a gadget player. I'm saying that he's his what he operates well, that we can all see as clear as day and has since the very beginning, is the short game, the bootleg game, which can be short or deep, but most of that's short and intermediate. He operates the quick game. I mean, I watch it in practice. I was filming him today in practice today. The quarterbacks, they're working on the quick game, just throwing it out, and it's like these guys, all three of their guys right now are putting that pass on a dime consistently. The hitch to the receiver at the boundary. All three Niner quarterbacks are making that pass consistently in practice, like it's just like almost like a handoff. That's how consistent they are with that pass. So, that's not all quarterbacks are, right? Some sail them and bounce them and this and that. And we saw him bounce one in this game. But to me, that was the point, that you need one of those guys. If you don't have one of those guys, you got to kind of change your plan. You got to probably run Jordan Mason. And to me, 5 carries for Mason? I mean, that they needed more carries for Mason.
I think that's what makes Kittle's lack of usage more baffling is because he could be that guy for you. I mean, tight ends are usually a young quarterback's safety blanket. Like, that's who they rely on. Now, the 49ers happen to have 2 other guys, but that's what makes it a little bit interesting. It's like, well, why would you not? Or you couldn't use Ray in the screen game or Ayuk in the screen game? Like, those guys are also pretty good, after they catch it near the line of scrimmage as well. I
they
felt
did
like
try to use Ray, didn't they?
They had the one that who knows how. I mean, he might still be running if they were able to complete it. But that was one time. Would they use it one time and it didn't work, and so they just stopped? I don't know.
I'd love to see more Ronnie Bell. He looks terrific in practice. Tinker says Greenlaw can't afford to pay any more fines. Maybe sit a few. Just saying. There is no Willis without Bowman, just as there's no Warner without Greenlaw.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I asked Warner today. I'm like, hey, no Dre. That hurt last week. And he's like, hey, Burks is good and Flanagan Fowles is good. He said what he needed to say, but it's like, hey, there's only one Dre Greenlaw. Yeah. And everybody knows it. Vish, pissed off brother Bob, says, Purdy's pimp, why does the real deal need CMC? CMC equals team MVP. Well, I mean, the MVP is not really a running back award, but you're right. I mean, nobody's been used more. The only thing about CMC winning the MVP, it's like CMC's not even going to play probably this week because he's so banged up because they're using him so much. I mean, to me, I'd rather CMC, I don't know, not win the MVP, and the Niners, I don't know, win the Super Bowl. So I'm not really concerned with, just feeding him. To me, if the Niners are gonna, I agree with Peter King, who went on. Would he say? Was it the radio, I believe, or maybe it was online, where he said Niners need to diversify their weapons and start using more of their players and using their depth, or they're not going to get to the finish line with their star players. I mean, CMC can't maintain this workload. I mean, no. Shanahan dodged it today and said, well, that's how many runs we have, and we're throwing it a lot to him. And it's like, okay, that's great. But I mean, you got other guys you got to start utilizing. And it's like, don't do it for me. Do it for yourself. I mean, you want to make sure that McCaffrey is, at the playoff games. I think their chances of winning go way up if he's there.
Yeah. If I came to you and I said, okay, you have 2 options. The 49ers are the number 1 seed, but CMC's running at 70% of who he is going into the playoffs. Or the 49ers are the number 2 seed and he's fully healthy. What are you choosing?
I'll take the lower seed in a team that's physically peaking.
It's exactly. So his health is more important than the number 1 seed, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. Having that bye week would be fantastic, but not better than having CMC at 100%.
Yeah. Sit him down. You got other guys. I mean, it's just simple as that. If you didn't have other guys, one thing. Vish, pissed off brother Bob, says, Purdy's pimp, have you ever called CMC gadget to his face? Yes, I have. Yes, I said you're a gadget. You're a gadget player. I say it to him. I mock him, actually. I go in the room and I'm like, gadget.
You heckle him in the locker room?
He'll walk by and I'll be like, gadget player. Hey, gadget. Yeah, I torture him. I torment him. I am a thorn to him every single day. And I will continue to be.
Every time you walk in the locker room, he looks over his shoulder and just like sighs and rolls his eyes like, gosh damn it, this guy again.
I'm giving him the handshake that sparks him. Hey, it's my gadget handshake for the gadget player. I've got like fun snaps. I'm throwing him on the carpet. Quack, quack. Gadget. Yeah, I heckle him. I just absolutely, I just, I'm just constant gadget. All right, your point's made. Your point's made. Daza is losing the trenches on both sides of the ball against the Browns, foretelling of the Eagles matchup. By the way, we get Eagles Dolphins this week. That is going to be a game. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, here's what you got to look at. The 49ers added Javon Hargrave, and Javon Hargrave's a great pass rusher, but he's not a great run defender. So now you got a guy who's like shoots up the middle, who's a great pass rusher and can really sack the quarterback. So then you take away Greenlaw, and now you're down two guys. The Niners safeties, have you noticed what they're better at? They're way better at catching interceptions. Have you noticed how much better Hufanga and Gibson are at picking up fumbles and grabbing interceptions than the last duo of Ward and Tart? But, Ward and Tart were here for a reason. And the reason they were here is because they literally hit more like linebackers, and they were so damn physical. So they've lost, those two. They've traded physical for ball skills at safety. And not that Gibson's not physical. He's physical, but he's not as physical as Tart and Ward. And those Tart and Ward were like extra backers. And then not having Greenlaw, and then not having DJ Jones, and having Hargrave, and I don't know. To me, they didn't stop the run in the preseason. They didn't stop the run last week. They did stop the run against Pollard. They did stop James Conner. But did they stop these teams, or did their offense get so far out in front that teams stopped running on them? I wonder how that would be my main question, Jesse, as far as the Niners at this point. Are they battle tested as a run defense? Do we know what they are as a run defense? Or are we still figuring that out?
I mean, I think the only reason we have these questions is because it did look so awful in the preseason. Like, we can't get that out of our mind. It's the same thing that with Moody. If Moody had looked good in the preseason, we would be like, he's a rookie. He'll be fine. Like, he'll figure it out. But now it's like, yeah, we say that and we hope that's true, but we can't get over the fact that he had the yips in the preseason. Now, he was able to get over that, but it only lasted a few weeks. Let's not forget that he didn't kick a field goal for a couple weeks either. And then all of a sudden, when things got tight, he was unable to come through. That's the same thing with this run defense. Like, they've been great all season long, but because of the preseason, now we have questions. I think the run defense is probably going to be fine, but you mentioned a name, and I actually was going to bring him up earlier in the show and kind of forgot about it. When we were talking about trade deadline guys, is DJ Jones available? And if so, is that a guy you want to bring in?
I love DJ Jones. He's a great guy. He follows me on Twitter, so he's invested. We're invested in one another. No, we've talked a lot of barbecue. I can't tell you how much barbecue I've talked with DJ. But no, he's a great guy, and he's an awesome run defender. It's my contention that the Niners would have beaten the Chiefs if they had DJ Jones in the Super Bowl. Because Damian Williams would not have run like that. And if he didn't run like that, they wouldn't win. They wouldn't win the game. So I really believe that. So I'm a DJ Jones head. I really believe in the guy. Now, he did have a knee problem last week against Kansas City, and I don't know his exact physical condition. I'd have to be convinced he was healthy. He also makes a lot of money. So it's like, would Denver be willing to pay some of that money? I don't know. That would be the question I would have. I think he makes like $16 or $17 million. How healthy is the knee? But if the knee's healthy, damn right, I absolutely want this guy, because this guy is an absolute number one, shut down the A gap kind of an interior player. Any team that has DJ Jones has the A gap covered. And I just think that you play some of these teams like Philadelphia if you got Greenlaw and Warner and guys who can really run, as long as you plug up the interior, you got a great chance to beat them. So I would definitely try to get DJ Jones.
Ooh, they would only have about $3 million in dead cap if they traded DJ Jones.
Yeah, I mean that would be absolutely a phenomenal addition, because he's just so strong inside, and you can't move him, you can't run. He's got a little bit of pass rush, And to me, that would be the best thing you could do to stuff the run. I mean, they do. I mean, Leonard Williams is nice as well, but I'd rather have DJ. I'd rather have DJ. Matthew Rowley says you often talk about not rolling the whole 40 million in cap space. Remember, we are predicted to be 30 million over the cap next year and still have Ayuk to sign. The cap can be massaged. You're inside your Super Bowl window. The present takes priority over your cap. You can deal with the cap in March. There's all kinds of ways. And also, you're trying to win the Super Bowl. You don't even know if some of these guys are even going to be on the team next year. So, to me, it's you go all in on this year. Now, you don't do stupid things, but if you're inside your Super Bowl window. So everything's on the table. Robbie Gould, absolutely, it's on the table. The discussion is on the table. Brian Burns on the table. Danielle Hunter on the table. You have Jalen Johnson, Sean Murphy Bunting, Dante Jackson, some corners out there. Definitely. All those guys are on the table. When I saw Devin Lloyd, I thought, wow, if he's out there.
Also, I don't know why, we have this habit, and I fall into it sometimes too, but when we talk about players that need to be signed, when they get their contracts reworked, they're not expensive that first year. That's rarely is the case. So signing Ayuk, he's going to be on the team no matter what next year, unless they decide they want to trade him for whatever reason. But his cap number is not going to be drastically different. If anything, a lot of times it goes down when they sign these extensions. So
they can spread it out. They can spread the bonus money out over the base of
they're not
years of the deal.
Signing Ayuk is not the concern. Yeah, I do. I understand what you're saying. I love that they have this money to roll over. It's very smart. But, I mean, if they don't win a Super Bowl and they're short a guy that they could have gotten at the deadline, I think that would be a bigger blow than not having all the money to roll over next year.
Nobody's going to go crazy on March whatever if they win the Super Bowl, but guess what? They cut Juice. People will be like, damn, I love Juice. Maybe he'll come back for cheaper, that kind of thing. But, people are going to be more mad if they, could have won the Super Bowl and didn't add a piece that's going to get them over the top. I would say be aggressive here. Be aggressive. Keith Murphy said, the Unbeaten says, Hufanga was a huge red shirt. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, we talk about the red shirts, man. They're all over this team.
Great player. Brother Bob, no Purdy's Pimpy missed 2 field goals, 3rd round pick, and we get misses. Sounds like a man who's running out of patience. Sound like the most patient fan there. Brother Bob says Moody can't consistently hit field goals or deep kickoffs. Easy.
Yeah, wasn't that supposed to be the thing?
Easy
that
counselor.
I remember everybody was telling me on that was like, well, you should be happy with Moody because he'll also kick the ball in the end zone on kickoffs. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're supposed to be happy about. Guess he was worth a 3rd round pick. You got me.
Robbie Gould was 38 for 38 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
38 for 38. Joey Malone, Krug with the exclamation point. How about that Crosby trade idea from the call-in show? I'll buy that jersey yesterday. What up, Jess?
Hey, what up, man? Yeah, I'd buy that jersey too. I'm not a jersey guy, but I am a Crosby fan, man.
How sweet would that be? Crosby Bosa? The nicknames would be incredible. Tinker, his name might be Money, but he ain't gold. Ah, LOL. Sorry, had to say that. That's worth it.
Nice.
I like that, Tinker.
Nice.
I like that. It's a man who's thinking. And again, he said it. No. And he said it again. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. I mean, you have a lot of teaching to do.
I mean, whoever gets him, I guess. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I love Russell Wilson, but I don't know what to say about him at this juncture. But Kyler, to me, has a future, and I would definitely want Kyler because I think, let's just gamble. He's gotten a lot of bad pub and he doesn't like to watch film and he doesn't work hard and blah, 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 blah. Or could it be the Arizona Cardinals?
Dumpster of an organization.
That's about 50-50 there, right? I'll take a chance on Kyler that maybe it was the Cardinals. The Cardinals have screwed up many a player Keith Murphy says, funny thing, when Kyle beat him, it was 13-12. Yeah, in other words, the guy always gets his tempo.
Yep.
Talking about
Schwartz,
the handshake gate with Harbaugh. Matt McEwen, yes, Jesse, say it loud, press man.
Yeah, telling you.
That's the adjustment.
That's the adjustment.
Brock's done. They're going to Darnold.
I think
you don't
no,
agree
I
with
think
Grant's
he's saying,
assessment, do you? By the
no,
way,
no. I think he's saying what he's saying. Press man is defense. He's saying the defense should be running because we were talking about that.
Oh yeah,
I think that's where he's coming from.
Oh, I got you because we talked about both those things.
Yeah.
Do you agree with Grant's assertion that Purdy's got one more week and then Shanahan's going to yank him and go to Darnold? That he really loves Darnold?
We talked about it a little bit. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. If Purdy, I'll say this: if Purdy came out and struggled the next 2 weeks, that wouldn't shock me. I also said this with Grant: if Purdy gets benched for any reason other than he's hurt, which isn't getting benched, but if he gets benched, it will be a mutiny in this fan base. You want to talk about a fan base united? Bench Brock Purdy and watch what happens. They'll be united against Kyle Shanahan. You cannot burn through another quarterback. Absolutely not. You've had your chances.
I'll be Googling pitchforks.
Yes. I'm telling you, the fan base would be united like none other. That's not the way I want to be united. I don't want to see Sam Darnold on the football field. I'm sorry.
Hey, man, we're going to Levi's. We're protesting.
Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, seriously, people will be mad. The Lions have always committed to running the ball. Hello. And still, even with Barry Sanders, couldn't win a Super Bowl. So, again, just saying.
Yeah, Barry Sanders, man.
I got to use just saying more. I used to use just saying. You can drop it on anything.
You really can. You really
can.
Saying. I'm just saying.
What's up, man? Just saying.
You can use it aggressively. You can use it passive aggressively.
Yeah. I got to use it more. Just saying. Frank Tom Ocean, great show, studs. What if fire us up, Frank? Do you guys think we have any players who could be dealt away in a trade? Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean,
who could the Niners get rid of on their roster that you could actually picture them trading? I'll say this. There's some reason they're not using TDP, and he had a good camp, and I could see them moving him for a back that they're going to utilize, like a veteran back. So I'd say TDP. He's the one, or maybe even Danny Gray. I could see them moving Danny Gray for a Rondale Moore or something like that. Here's our young receiver burning for your guy who's maybe 1 year away from free agency receiver or free agent at the end of the year. I mean, you never know. I mean, I can't see them trading a lot of players, to be honest, but those two make sense to me.
Plot twist: the reason he's pumping up Mitchell is to trade him. I could see maybe a TDP potentially. I talked about Jennings as well at some point, if Bell was coming on, which I think he kind of is, but I don't see that. We talked about the linebacker depth earlier, if they really wanted to get one of those younger guys on the field and they're starting to show out a little bit, maybe they could make a move there. I mean, it would be an ancillary piece. And it would be likely. I just don't see a trade going out. But although if they do trade for somebody coming in, they're going to have to cut somebody. So maybe they would end up trading somebody. Who knows?
I've got one major question left for Jesse, and also I want these supers here where we want to get everybody's money off the table and into our pockets as fast as possible. Did I say that? Okay. Hey, is this the 49er channel or the Lions channel? How about those 49ers beating the Vikings? Hey, just saying. Again and again.
Just saying.
Just saying. Look at that. He was just saying. Farhad M, $2. Thank you. Appreciate that. Brother Bob. Vish pissed off Brother Bob. Vish, who's on vacation all the time. Like to be Vish.
Still pissing off Brother Bob.
So it's a dink and dunk offense and or quarterback. Admit it. Oh, my gosh. Come on. You're going to be all right. Swim to shore. Vish pissed off Brother Bob. So, Purdy's pimp, what you're saying is CMC is greater than Brock Purdy. Have you ever heard that saying, apples and oranges? I would say that if you ask me who's more the MVP on the Niners, I would say it's Brock Purdy based on the fact that he's a quarterback and the Vegas odds were more in his favor than CMC. Running back MVP is just not a running back award anymore. But if you're asking a different question, if you're asking who's more vital, how can you be more vital than CMC the way he's played this year? He's got 131 touches. The next Niner, I think, has 28. They're using him like he's O.J. Simpson and it's 1973 or something. It's like he just catches the ball on every play. It's amazing, really.
It is crazy. You're right from an MVP standpoint. It was something we were talking about. Obviously, going into this last week, there was a lot of talk about MVP for Brock Purdy. He's still in the running. One bad week doesn't remove you. Every player has a bad week, but it is a quarterback award. It's just the way that it works. I do think, at least for now, like there was a lot of conversation, who's more important? Was it Purdy or CMC? I think for the moment we can kind of lay that to rest, but that doesn't mean that Brock Purdy's not extremely important and can't win an MVP if he starts to ball out. And again, I don't want to see Sam Darnold. I don't want to see it. I'm sorry. I just don't.
Matt McEwen says Monday night is going to be the most meaningful night in Brock's career. He says, Matt McKeon, Grant's right. We need to see Purdy without CMC. One game.
Minnesota's not going to answer the question. Minnesota's not going to answer the question.
If they win 31-13 without CMC Monday night, doesn't answer the question. You're saying?
No, because it's a bad defense. One game. It's a bad. And here's the other thing too. Also, this goes both ways. One bad game also doesn't mean that he can't produce at all without CMC. Like I just don't. I don't get this need for everybody to make rash decisions on who players are, who players aren't, based off of one showing, good or bad. And this is across the league. Golly, Herbert had a bad game, and now all of a sudden he's a terrible quarterback. Oh, he's overrated. 2 weeks ago, Dak was overrated. Now he's good again. Like we can't just consistently do this back and forth. One week.
No, did you hear Greg Cosell this week said that Joe Burrow, the guy who watched Burrow's film for NFL Films with a fine-tooth comb, found Burrow missed 8 gimmies.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He's not playing well this season. Like, okay, it happens. Every player is going to play bad. These players are good players. They're playing good more than they're playing bad. And, yes, I think anybody in their right mind can say if CMC is not on the field, Brock won't be as effective as he was. But does that mean he's as bad as he was in Cleveland? No, he's not going to be that bad either. Like, both things can be true. Of course, losing an elite player is going to make you less effective, but he's not going to look the way that he did in Cleveland just because CMC's not on the field.
Take CMC out of it for a second. Let's just talk Purdy for a second.
Yeah.
Cosell said that, hey, one of the things that many of the people who watched Purdy at Iowa State didn't like was the combination. And this was actually the most significant thing that he said all week, I thought. And yet the other things that he said about, hey, he wasn't that bad, took the headlines. But he basically said the combination of Purdy, the combination of now I'm lost my thought on what I was trying to say.
Iowa State. Why they didn't like Brock Purdy so much?
The combination was that they didn't like the fact that he didn't have a big arm and he had accuracy issues at times. Now he completed 67%, so it's not like he struggled, but that there were scouts that questioned his accuracy and the arm strength. So that's interesting. If you're one of these people that thinks there's going to be some regression in Brock Purdy, it's the combination of you question the arm strength and now he's having a regression of his accuracy, because let's be honest, I would say most of us have seen a Brock Purdy that we would describe as more accurate than most. Not all by any chance, but he's not like he's dotting things left and right, but he does throw with anticipation. He does throw guys open and he will make some perfect passes. Where would you put him accuracy wise? I'd say he's more accurate than the average NFL quarterback, but I don't know exactly if he is like That's the part of his game where I think we could see some regression. We'll see.
Maybe. I had Brock Purdy as a 3rd-round grade coming out. And
Niners had him as a 4th, by the way.
Obviously higher than even the Niners had him, right? I didn't see that in college. The 2 questions I had about him was arm strength. Obviously, that's still a thing, but it's fine. It's working out for him. But really, to me, it was his decision making is what I saw lapses in. It wasn't his accuracy. I thought it was his decision making that I questioned. I talked about that. I talked about that early when he was playing well. I said, hey, hold off. One thing I saw in college is he'll give you those Jimmy moments and not the good ones. He'll give you some of those bad ones. Now, that, at least for now, he's pretty much kind of wiped those out. So that's what I feel good about, is that he's been able to remove those from his game. Now, if he doesn't have all these weapons, does that regress? Maybe, I guess. But I never had an issue with his accuracy. Again, I agree with what you said. I don't think he's the most accurate. In fact, Stats had a really good way of putting it. I was watching him earlier this week, and he said he's accurate, but he's not pinpoint. That I agree with. He's not pinpoint, but he is accurate. And so I've never had an accuracy issue with Brock Purdy at all. It was decision-making in college that I worried about.
That's actually what I've said about Stats for years, is that he's accurate.
but not pinpoint?
But not pinpoint. He's not pinpoint.
That's
Stats,
funny.
if you're out there, I'll say it again. You're not pinpoint.
I don't even know what that means in the content world. What?
Vish, pissed off brother Bob, says, okay, now let's talk about peeps you bring on your show. Where are you going here?
Where are we going?
And then he goes, just so we're clear, I'm talking about Damon Bruce. You guys are boys. All right, look at that. Brother Bob taking shots. Vish, pissed off brother Bob. You okay with peeps using the N-word? Do you use it? Oh my God, here we go. Brother Bob's getting really, really testy now. Vish, pissed off brother Bob. You cool with grown men using his position on girls? Okay. No, I'm not, actually. Which is why tomorrow, I'm glad you asked me this tonight, because normally on Fridays I do stream with Jack, and I'm not going to be streaming with Jack going forward. And I did already make that announcement, but I told people that I would tell them before, because I found out about it after Friday, and called Jack, told him as much, said that we wouldn't be streaming going forward. So that's really all I have to say about it. I don't really know anything more than that, but that's what I would have to say. I enjoyed streaming with him, but that's, we will not be streaming going forward. Brother Bob says, they say birds of a feather flock together. Nice. Thank you, Brother Bob. Appreciate you. Farhad says, what do you guys think of Cam Jordan to the Niners? A little long in the tooth.
He's a hell of a player, but man, I just don't see the Saints getting rid of him. I mean, as long as they have a chance, I'm sure. I don't know what the score ended up being tonight.
31-24, Jaguars won.
Okay. So that's another loss for them, but they're still in it.
They're 3-4 now. Saints are 3-4.
Yeah, but that division's not good, right? Like Falcons, Bucks, they can make the playoffs out of their Panthers. So I don't see that happening, but maybe.
Another one from Purdy's Pimp. He says, yeah, Purdy's Pimp, from Brother Bob. Yeah, Purdy's Pimp, don't get all excited calling Brock Purdy king. LOL. All right. Easy. At least we're talking sports again. Matt McEwen says, sorry, Jesse, I just wanted to see Larry get worked up. LOL.
So he was referring to the press man. Okay. Nice.
Seymour Ducats. Good stuff, fellas. Keep up the great work. Love the content, Larry. Always spitting hot fire. Thank you. And not bought and paid for like most media. Just saying. Well, I like the just saying on there.
Just say, everybody's throwing in just saying, huh?
But don't you got to leave off the G? Isn't it just saying?
Just saying. Yeah, you can't say ing, I guess.
Sammy and Pickle says, reminder, one loss in October does not mean the sky is falling. The 49ers and a moody Purdy will be fine. No, the sky has to be falling after every loss, especially when you miss a field goal. Are you kidding me? I wonder though. It's like the one thing is, the one thing that I wouldn't think would be nice about sports is that at the end of the week, if you had success or failure. There's so many people that just keep working the same thing and they don't know. Are you succeeding? I don't know. The company seems to be making pretty good money, but we all may get dumped. And I don't know. There's all kinds of rumors. And, it's like at least pro athletes, they know. They get on the plane to go home. They know. You know what I mean? They know. They know if they, they know if they won or lost. All right. Brother Bob says, but using the N word is okay. You use it? No, I don't use it. Thanks for that, Brother Bob. We've got this one. He says, Jesse, do you use the N word? Come on.
No, the only N word I use is my last name.
There you go. Digital Drew says, Krug and Jess, you guys rule, and I'm free on Friday mornings, Krug. LOL. Great stream, gents. Glad I caught it. Digital Drew,
he's throwing his name in the hat for Fridays. I like it.
I'll call you. Actually, who I am going to be streaming with on Friday mornings now, and I've never actually talked to him, but he reached out to me, and then I said, hey, I've got an opening on Fridays, and would you like to come on? And we'll see how we stream together. Is Chase Senior from Chat Sports.
No.
So he's going to join me on Friday, not tomorrow, but starting, I think, next Friday for a few Fridays, and we'll see. He's
a smart guy. He's a smart guy. I mean, he's
Chat Sports.
He's interesting because he's got the Philly. He runs Chat Sports Philly and San Francisco. I've always had a question, and I mean, he may not be a fan of either. Really, I don't know if he's a fan of either team or if he's a fan of just the one team or what have you. That would be an interesting question for him. But I've always had good interactions with him online, and he seems like a sharp guy. Chat Sports is a little bit different. It's actually it's almost kind of like radio, but on YouTube. It really is. I think you would appreciate.
Well, he's streaming the entire game. I mean, the entire game. He's talking about the game.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
I know. I have done it. Yeah, I've done it a couple times. Like when we played, like on Thursday night, I did it because I'm East Coast, so staying up super late, doing a post game just was not what I was looking for. It was a ton of fun. Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it.
I could do it if I was on like a leather couch and drinking. I don't know that if I could do it just like with a microphone and just pick Jordan Mason 3-yard reception.
But that's the other thing is I'm not like a play-by-play guy. I'm just reacting and talking with the people in the chat and they're giving their opinions, and it is fun. I will say it's different. It's fun. I couldn't do it every game, and the hard part is it's really hard because I like to take notes during the game. And I actually don't usually look back on the notes or anything, but writing it down kind of helps me remember things more. So I either take notes or I tweet it out. So when I'm watching the games and just talking about it, I have like major gaps of like what the hell happened in the second quarter because you know what I mean? I'm not putting it in the memory bank. So I have to go back and watch the game much earlier than I normally would just to make sure that I'm ready to talk on Tuesday and what have you. So yeah, that's
the only thing I love right now. My new favorite NFL toy is my son got me NFL Plus, and so I watch the condensed version of the game, and I'll watch the Vikings condensed version of their game, and I'll watch their condensed version of their game the week before, and you can watch an entire NFL game in like 36 minutes or something like that, 38 minutes, and you gotta, you see every play. Even if you're not watching all 22, even if it's, I can watch the all 22 if I want to go silent all 22, or I can watch the condensed version in 28 minutes.
And you at least get the announcers going in there too, which is entertaining.
And you get you get some of their anecdotes. Sometimes you get like some part of one instead of the entire one, but it's pretty good. I mean, to me, especially like, I don't want to invest 4 hours in going through Viking film, but if you give me 28 minutes, 38 minutes, something like that, I'll watch it. Absolutely. Sammy and Pickle says breaking Philadelphia and Denver in serious talks for Surtain. Oh, wow. Is that true?
I don't know if that's true, but if it is,
hold on, man,
that
would bother my day.
That one would actually be worse than losing to Cleveland. Like that would ruin my day more.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna type this in.
I just looked. I can't see it. I mean, they were talking about it. Sports Illustrated was talking about it a little bit. Chat Sports, oddly enough, Chase, he was talking about it, but I don't see anywhere. He said that he wants to play his career in Denver. That was a day ago.
Well, I'll tell you, Surtain is the kind of piece that I would trade my first round pick for.
Oh, easily.
I don't want to see them get him. I really don't. I mean, that would not be good. We got this one from Brother Bob. He says, so Purdy's pimp, you okay with Bruce saying he uses the N-word? No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. What I would say is I'm not his keeper and take it up with him on his show. Frank Tom Ocean says, real talk, just saying, we need a Jess LK and Cone show. We could probably
I like
Grant
how he threw in a real talk and a just saying. Well done, sir. Well done.
Sammy and Pickles is breaking. Oh, wait. Couldn't be breaking twice. We got this one from Matt McEwen. Brother Bob, greater than Brock Purdy. Jesse the Goat. Is Brother Bob greater than Brock Purdy? These are very difficult questions to answer. Brother Bob, drop this. You think players you cover like Brock Purdy saying the N-word? No.
Oh, Sammy says that it's a fake article. He fell for it.
Oops meant DB, not BP. How do you think they feel? And we got this one from Sammy and Pickle. He says, I fell for a fake article. F Twitter. How can you get a fake article?
You got to be careful, man.
You got to be careful on the insiders, by the way, like NBA trade deadline day. Seymour Ducats. Larry, who is the 49er equivalent of Marty Lurie? We need someone to calm fans and talk about the mosaic of football. Would it be Pop? Your thoughts? That's a good one. That is a good one. Who is like the calm, reasonable voice, the veteran influence that says, calm down, everybody. Maybe, even though I'm sure he wouldn't think of himself this way because Marty's quite a bit older, but maybe Mayoko. I could see Mayoko as saying, hey, look, yes, the rookie kicker has missed 6 key field goals, but there's a chance still. Don't quit. I mean, it's like the rest of us would be like, get gold. Maddie would probably be okay. They may opt to go with Moody. They like Moody long term. I mean, I think I would be screaming, you would be screaming, Grant would be screaming, lots of people would be screaming, the fans would be screaming. Everybody, Maddie has patience. I can see him saying, it's okay. Things are going to be okay. Purdy's pimp again. Will you tell your boy DB you're not cool with it? I've known him for a long time. I'll absolutely tell him right to his face. Whatever I have to say to him, I will absolutely say to him. And we have talked. And I've told him about my feelings on that. There you go. Let's see. We have this one from Digital Drew. Larry is the Marty Lurie of the Niners. It's the reason I'm still here. Quit watching those outrage merchants. I'm the Marty Lurie of the Giants. God, man, I never really thought of it. I'm the Marty Lurie of the Niners. I don't know about that. Let's see. What else do we have? Jesse, okay, a couple last ones I have for you before you go.
Okay.
This one, or before we end this. NFL odds, the Niners have the 3rd best odds, according to what I read today, to land Chase Young of the Washington Commanders. What do you think of that? I mean, is that, here's the one thing about these odds. You don't hear me talking a lot about odds on this show. And I don't talk a lot about odds during the NFL draft season because there's all kinds of odds throughout, March or whatever. But when you get within, closer to the actual thing happening, there is something to be said for follow the money and watch where people put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. So I watched, when Trey Lance was drafted, I watched the odds go from favoring the Niners to take Mac Jones to midday favoring the Niners to take Trey Lance. And by the time I got on the radio, it was like, hey, they're going to take Trey Lance. So I do kind of follow the odds now more than like predictors or writers or anybody who's like knowledgeable. Um, I don't know what if you look more at the odds or more at like, people that actually have credentials. But when you see Chase Young, the Niners with the third best odds to go get Chase Young, what do you think of that?
Do you know who's number 1 and number 2 by chance?
I don't. I don't.
I wonder. That's a curious one. Yeah, I mean, I
Let me
don't
see if I can find it.
know.
Let me see if I can find it.
I don't know if I take odds that serious unless they're like far and away the number 1 odds. Like if they're so far ahead of number 2 is the team to go get them, then I'd be like, okay, there's something there. There's obviously something they're hearing. But when you're number 3 on that list, I don't know if I look too much into that. I think once you get past 1 and probably 2, you're looking at it saying, okay, what team makes sense from this point on? Okay, yeah, the 49ers could use a pass rusher. We'll just pin them there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, um, okay, I'm seeing different things here. A lot of people said the Bears top the list,
Yeah.
and the Lions, the Niners, the Eagles, and the Ravens round out the top 5. So yeah, so it was Bears, then Lions, then Niners. Chase Young is having a very good bounce back year.
Yeah,
I mean, I know they did not pick up the 5th-year option, but what he's done this year on the field makes me wonder why they didn't pick up that option, or if they will try to bring him back. He's looked really good.
They were worried about that injury he had. I mean, I think there was a lot of concern there. He came back and he looked okay, but he wasn't really fully healthy last year. I think that scared him away.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. Kevin F says more shows with Dan and Cy, please. Just saying. Okay, there you go. And Brother Bob says, K back to football. How long is Moody's leash nails?
I mean,
kicking it back to football. Okay.
One more. Well, I like how you said kick it back to football. One more game like that.
That's it? One more and then he's out?
Yeah. For this year, yes. Yeah. He'll have a mysterious quad injury or something.
Let me get these other. Daza says, unless we're getting a high-end defensive end, Gregory looked good last week. Isn't Jordan Willis a free agent? No, I think he's on maybe the Raiders practice squad.
Practice squad, I think. Yeah, Raiders.
I mean, Gregory did look good. Are you okay, Jesse? I mean, this is kind of like the teeth of your defense.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with Bosa, Gregory, Drake, and Farrell? Or do you want to upgrade that?
I mean, I'm fine with it. Here's what I would say. I don't think it has to be a defensive end or a defensive lineman that they go get. But if Gregory's the only move they make, I would be a little disappointed. Not completely, because the team's still very good. And I think Gregory actually in a debut played pretty well. And I think that over the long run, it's going to look pretty good with those guys, Gregory out there and Bosa and what have you. I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback quite a bit. But if that's the only move they make, or I'll rephrase it. If you told me 2 weeks ago that the only move they're going to make for the deadline, and they're going to make a move, but the only one is going to be Gregory, I'd be like, okay. I don't know. That doesn't really get me too excited.
Okay, so I'll say this. What I would like to see them do is, because I think Surtain, to me, is going to cost you your number 1 pick. I think you need to reserve that number 1 pick to try to get a tackle next year. So I'm not, even though you're in your Super Bowl window, I think I would like to try to, fill my needs without trading that number 1 pick. The guys that would interest me, I'd be interested in trying to add a cost, a reasonably cost edge rusher. Arden Key, Josh Ushi, those are the guys that I think make sense. Corner wise, I'd like to add like Sean Murphy Bunting, somebody like that, somebody who's got some talent, who's a proven entity in the league. I'd love to see them add a guy like Zach Ertz. I think Ertz could help their tight end quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then, ultimately, I think the defensive tackle position is really interesting. I mean, I like their defensive tackles. I mean, I think we all do, right? I mean, they're pretty loaded inside. But, the question is, it's like, well, do you want Kalia Davis or do you want to add another inside player, or a DJ Jones, a Leonard Williams? Um, that would take, some cap maneuvering and that kind of thing. But, that's a big question. That's one of the questions I think that if I'm John Lynch, I'm kind of entertaining right now. Do I ride with what I've got inside, or do I look for Leonard? Because, Bleacher Report had the Niners tied to Leonard Williams, and I could definitely see them liking DJ Jones because he was here before. So, either one of those guys, I think, makes sense for the 49ers. The question is, how serious of an issue do you think the Niners' run D struggles are? If you don't think it's a big deal and they'll be fine when Greenlaw gets back, maybe you roll that money over instead. I mean, how serious do you think their run D problems are? That's the question.
Also, those players aren't going to necessarily help the run defense because who are they going to supplant in the starting lineup? Is Armstead going to come off the field? Is Hargrave going to come off the field? No. So you usually get ran on in first and second down, and those guys are a staple in the starting lineup. So I don't know. I don't look at it and go, oh, they're running all over backups. Like, no, that wasn't what happened. They were just running over the whole team.
Matt McKeown says sometimes you need to trade to block a competitor. I know. Absolutely.
Well, you were talking about Jonathan Taylor earlier in the year for that reason.
Yeah, and also Jeremy Chin. I really like Jeremy Chin as a player to block from going to Philadelphia. Now he's been hurt, and so he'll be out past the deadline. Frank Tom Ocean says, smash the likes on both channels. It's free. Last question for you, Jesse. Top 5 coaches, top 5 candidates for NFL Coach of the Year. 4 of the 5 are Shanahan or Shanahan's tree. You got Mike McDaniel for Miami.
Makes sense.
D'Amico Ryans for Houston. Kyle himself.
Yeah.
And Robert Saleh from the Jets. And the only one who isn't on the top 5, Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell deserves to be in there for sure.
What do you think? Who would you give this award to in your mind, based on what you've seen so far?
I mean, what I've seen so far, I would probably give it to D'Amico.
Yeah.
D'Amico right now, yeah. Yeah, I'd have to go to D'Amico.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, what a baller, man. Golly, that kid's going to be good. Good. He was my number 1 quarterback coming out this year, but I didn't necessarily expect it to be this good this early.
I mean, they just got a lot going on there. I mean, you look at, Nico Collins, Tank Dell's hurt now, but I mean, Robert Woods. Then you look at their offensive line. Laramie Tunsil's a foundation piece tackle. The other tackle was really good too. He's hurt now, but Titus Howard, is that who that was?
I think so.
Opposite him. So they got 2 really nice tackles. Stroud is a fantastic young quarterback, you can tell. And then you got Damian Pierce, and then on defense, Will Anderson, Jonathan Greenard. They've got some guys hurt now. They've got Stingley, who's hurt, who's a tremendous young player. I mean, they've got some. They're coming on. I mean, they're probably a year or 2 away from being a real scary outfit. But man, D'Amico's got momentum there in year 1, and they look legit. I mean, they really hit the draft when you think about it. They went C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, and they went 2 for 2. I think. I mean, Will Anderson thus far looks really, really good, and Stroud does too.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be big spenders in free agency over the next couple seasons. They don't have their first round pick this next year, but it was worth it. It was worth it to go get Anderson, I think, and Stroud. So, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think they're a year away from being a year away, but Stroud is very, very, very good. Very good. Very promising. In fact, my assessment of him coming out was, you want to talk about a perfect quarterback for Kyle Shanahan? CJ Stroud. We talk about pinpoint accuracy. He's got pinpoint accuracy.
He looks good. I mean, and he's so much for that cognitive test that he bombed, right?
I mean, and I have it on good accord that was a lie, a flat out lie. And he actually did well.
Well, then he ought to. That's something, because that whoever makes that test is probably going to be outraged, because I mean, obviously he's the guy is playing at a really high level. Vish, pissed off brother Bob, says, Nails, how was the Behind Enemy Lines show? He said he was working late.
Oh, it was good, man. I'm telling you. So I ended up having to do it this afternoon, Larry. Normally, I do it on Wednesday night. During the off season, I do my open mic call-in show on Wednesday night. And last night, I ended up doing that because behind enemy lines, we had to push to this afternoon. But man, you want to talk? This dude was full. He had the accent and everything. He's from Minnesota. He had the whole thing going. It was fantastic. He picked the 49ers to win the game as well. But we had a lot of really good discussion around Daniil Hunter, around Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. There was a lot of takeaways from that show. It was a good show. I enjoyed it.
There's something about talking to people from the other side that is nice. I mean, I really enjoy it. That you get a different perspective, you just get a different vibe altogether.
Yeah, you do. And one of the questions that I ask every week, and this is my favorite question to ask, is give me a player from your team that people that don't watch week in and week out don't know about, but is a hidden gem. So like somebody that is either breaking out now or you expect to break out, a young player, something like that. And you start to learn players that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise know about. And it's a lot of fun because we have them here in San Francisco, right? Like last year, that guy would have been Hufanga. People be like, who? Hufanga? This year it might be Lenore, or even last year it could have been Lenore. And those are players that we know about and we're high on and we know the name and we're excited about. But, who's a fan of the Texans and knows about those guys? Probably not. So I like asking that question and learning about other teams and lesser known players, because in a couple of years, those are going to be the superstars potentially in this league.
Oh, no question about it. And that's the thing. I mean, that's what it takes to win. That's what it takes to win is you got to find stars. By the way, as far as our own behind enemy lines, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, Pete Bursich is going to be in the house. He is the color and analyst for the Vikings. So we'll talk a little bit tomorrow morning on the Krug Show with Pete Bursich, color analyst of the Vikings. And I love doing that stuff. I love kind of getting, and he's a former Notre Dame linebacker, and he's been doing it for years there in Minnesota. So I'm eager to see what he thinks of the 49ers from afar, from Brock Purdy, and of course getting a kind of a thumbnail breakdown from Pete Bursich in the morning on what he's doing or what he thinks of the matchup Monday night. Jesse, what do you got cooking on the channel leading into game day and on game day?
Shoot, I don't know. Game day is going to be interesting. I might actually end up streaming the game because I don't know if I'm going to want to do a post game that late. Again, I'm on the East Coast, so that's a late night if I decide to do the post game. Leading up to it, I'll probably just cut up some of the shows from this week. This was a busy week for me, man. I had more shows than anticipated, and I guess that's always a good thing. So
that's always a good thing. Always a good thing. Bazzy Mion says McDaniel and D'Amico will be candidates for Coach of the Year. Maybe Saleh too. Time to give Shanahan his flowers for his greatness in the league. It really, I mean, it's kind of a weird award, right? The Coach of the Year is kind of like, if your premise is wrong, your conclusion's wrong. So if you don't know, like the people who vote on this award, do they know how good everybody's roster is? Or is the Coach of the Year like how the coach did based on what the general consensus was of how he should do?
I think it's more that Dayball last year with the Giants, right? Like that was.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's like, we didn't think he was going to be very good. And then we didn't think the talent was very good. And then they win. And then it's like, well, then it had to be the coach, right? Because we don't think the talent's very good. And we're never wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of a funny one. But I say D'Amico. I think D'Amico, you're seeing, I saw their game against Jacksonville a couple weeks ago in Jacksonville, and they just out hit Jacksonville. They beat them to the punch. They had tons of energy. They're playing good on both sides of the football. They're not there yet building wise, but D'Amico's got a lot of momentum going for sure. All right. One shout out to to my sponsors at the bottom of the screen, marinautoglass.com. Thank you to them. If you shatter a windshield, give them a call, 415-883-3030. Also, New York style Italian sausage and Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Get the brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. Jesse, awesome stuff, man. 2 hours and 18 minutes and 54 seconds. Vish.
If we had Vish, we'd go 4 hours tonight.
This could have been a 3-hour plus with Vish.
Get
Anyway,
ready for it next week.
Yeah, and what are we gonna do next week? Have we decided what the plan is? Are we
yeah,
gonna...
well, I mean, the only fair thing is the rotation fell on yours, so we would do yours again, and then we'll go back to mine. I think that's fair.
Sounds good. Jesse, have a great night. Go Niners. I'll be back there tomorrow morning for more tomorrow afternoon after I talk to Pete Bursich in the morning. We'll get out to Ninerland tomorrow because it's Friday, but the normal Friday is actually a Thursday schedule. So I'll be down there in Santa Clara late tomorrow, getting Niner videos and talking to Forster and Wilkes, and then of course the weekly visit with Brock Purdy. For Jesse, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for.